From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251. Good times come after bad times. 4 people entered Qiao Yushan's office. Director Lee was one of them, and the other 2 were directors of the head office. Qiao Yushan naturally knew these 3 people, but Qiao Yushan had never seen the woman walking in the middle. The woman was about 1.7 meters tall, wearing a small suit with a white shirt, a pair of tapered trousers, and a pair of black high heels. Her long legs were so attractive that she was indescribably attractive. Her figure was convex where it should be convex and concave where it should be concave. Even the most outstanding model might not have a better figure than her. Especially her face. Although she only put on light makeup, it was still a national beauty. Even a beauty like Qiao Yushan felt a little ashamed when she saw this woman. Director Lee bowed in front of the woman, with a smile on his face, as cheap as a pug, and said, "Chairman Meng, this is Qiao Yushan, who used to be the president of this company, before." When the woman spoke, the crisp voice was accompanied by a magnetic sound, which made people feel indescribably comfortable. Director Lee hurriedly said, "Yes, our new president will take office soon. I will call her here immediately. I really didn't expect that you, the chairman, would come here in person. This is her fault." Qiao Yushan was a little puzzled. She also knew the chairman of the head office, and had met him 2 days ago. Why did she suddenly change? And it was such a young and beautiful woman. Changing the chairman is a big deal. It means that there has been a major change in the company's equity. Normally, it takes a long time to operate, and all kinds of news should have spread in the company. This sudden change, even she didn't receive any news, and even from Director Lee's performance, I'm afraid he didn't know about this situation in advance, which is quite weird. The chairman, surnamed Meng, looked at Qiao Yushan, and then said, "During the company's development period, changing the leader is a taboo. I think let's forget about it." Director Lee immediately said anxiously, "Chairman Meng, this is all decided by the company's board of directors." Chairman Meng said lightly, "I say there is no need to change now. This..." Director Lee stuttered, and didn't know what to say. Although Chairman Meng's words were simple, they directly showed her determination. Although Director Lee was the son of a director, his family's shares could only rank 3rd. In front of the largest shareholder, he had no right to speak. Chairman Meng then said lightly, "Okay, I want to talk to President Qiao. You guys should do what you need to do." Director Lee's skin twitched and said, "Chairman Meng, this matter." Chairman Meng turned his head and glanced at Director Lee, saying, "If you are dissatisfied with the decision I made, you can submit it to the board of directors for deliberation. Now, you get out." The voice was not loud, but it was quite impolite. Director Lee's face changed several times, and finally he walked out angrily. Liu Yushan finished pouring tea and walked out. Only Qiao Yushan and Chairman Meng were left in the office. Let me introduce myself. My name is Meng Keqing. I just acquired the shares of the major shareholder of this company. Qiao Yushan quickly reached out and shook Meng Keqing's hand, saying, "Hello, Chairman Meng. This matter is really too sudden. I haven't recovered for a while." Meng Keqing smiled slightly and said, "This matter is indeed quite sudden. We will get familiar with each other in the future. There are not many companies in this group that can make money. President Qiao's company is one of the few profitable companies in the company. President Qiao has made an indelible contribution." These words made Qiao Yushan feel very comfortable. She has been very depressed during this period. This feeling of being recognized moved her very much, and an impulse to die for a friend also surged in her heart. Chairman Meng recognizes me so much, then I, Qiao Yushan, will definitely work hard for Chairman Meng in the future, and devote everything I have to the company wholeheartedly. These words seem a bit exaggerated, but they are indeed Qiao Yushan's true thoughts at the moment, not at all artificial. Meng Keqing smiled and said, "Mr. Qiao, you don't have to be like this. I recognize your ability and appreciate your character. I'm unfamiliar with this place. I will need Mr. Qiao's support in the future, so that I can better control the company." Qiao Yushan immediately said, okay, I will do my best to support Chairman Meng. Well, please introduce this company to me. I'm quite interested in your situation here. More than an hour later, Meng Keqing left. Qiao Yushan sent her to the gate of the company and waited until they got in the car before turning around and entering the company. When Qiao Yushan returned to the office, Yushan excitedly waved her fist and said, Mr. Qiao, I said that things will not be so bad. You will definitely stay in the company. Qiao Yushan was also in a good mood at this time. After chatting with Meng Keqing for a while, Meng Keqing extremely recognized her in the management of the company. Although there was no promise being appreciated so much, the haze that had been weighing on her heart for many days was also swept away. Now that it's settled, just work hard. In the past few days, a lot of work has been left behind. Now Qiao Yushan can finally handle the company's affairs with peace of mind. But within a few minutes, a woman came directly into the office. This woman's name is Xiao Lejing, the one with an unclear relationship with Director Li. She used to be the general manager of another branch, but the scale of that head office is very small, and she was not doing very well. Originally, Qiao Yushan was transferred this time, and she was going to take over the position of president by relying on some special relationships and her willingness to pay. Xiao Lejing stepped on high heels and came in. After looking at Qiao Yushan with a proud look, she raised her chin and said, Qiao Yushan, do you want to stand your last shift? Or are you preparing things for me to hand over? Qiao Yushan and Yushan were both a little confused. What was going on? Didn't Xiao Lejing know that Qiao Yushan stayed here? Xiao Lejing really didn't know the situation. The news she got was yesterday. Today, someone from the head office came to announce Qiao Yushan's appointment and removal, and her appointment, normally, should not be announced until tomorrow. But she couldn't wait. She guessed that after the people from the head office came, she came here to protest to Qiao Yushan. Seeing that Qiao Yushan didn't answer, Xiao Lejing chuckled and said, Qiao Yushan, didn't you always look down on me? Didn't you always act arrogantly in front of me? You didn't expect this day to come, did you? You didn't expect that the empire you worked so hard to build would end up in my hands? Chapter 252 How could this happen? Yushan had been holding back a grudge these past few days, and at this moment he stood up suddenly and said with a sullen face, Boss Xiao, this is Boss Qiao's office. If you don't have an appointment, please get out. Xiao Lejing immediately got furious, pointing at Yushan and said angrily, how dare you, a little secretary, talk to me like that? I was thinking that after Qiao Yushan left, I would still like to use you. Don't you want to do this job now? Yushan was also furious and said angrily, if I were to follow you, I would rather not do it. I, Yushan, am not someone who will serve everyone. Xiao Lejing's face turned blue with anger. Okay, then you wait for me. I'll fire you first. Yushan said disdainfully, fire me? Then you have to have the ability to do this. Xiao Lejing's fingers were shaking with anger, and she said sharply, you say I don't have the ability? Do you know that tomorrow I will be the president here? Do you think I have the ability? Tomorrow? Haha, I don't know how you can be so shameless to think you can be the president here. Xiao Lejing was furious, but since the other person had risked his life, she had no choice but to divert the blame, and said to Qiao Yushan, you, who do you think you are to tell me these things? I'm too lazy to talk to you. Qiao Yushan, are you doing your last madness? Qiao Yushan was calm at this time and said lightly, Boss Xiao, if you come to visit me and have exchanges with me, then I welcome you. But if you have nothing to do and want to show off in front of me, please leave. Heh. Xiao Lejing curled her lips in disdain and said, are you still qualified to say that? You have been dismissed. This company is no longer your territory, Qiao Yushan. Yushan snorted and said, I really don't know if you are blind or deaf. The chairman of the head office just came here and said in person that Boss Qiao is still the president here. You are not qualified to come to this company. Bah. Who are you trying to fool? The board of directors has already been held. I'm the president here. Yushan immediately gave her an idiotic look. She felt too lazy to talk to such a person. Director Li hurriedly walked in at this time. This time Qiao Yushan had secured her position and was obviously highly valued by the new chairman. As the son of a director, he seemed not to be good enough, so he wanted to come up and ease the relationship with Qiao Yushan. But when he saw Xiao Lejing, he immediately thought something bad had happened, frowned, and said, "Why are you here? I didn't inform you. What are you doing here?" Xiao Lejing immediately showed a charming smile and said, "Director Lee, I'm here to see her joke. Anyway, I'm going to be the president here tomorrow. If I don't come earlier, I won't be able to see her miserable appearance." Director Lee's face darkened, and he said, "What nonsense are you talking about? Let's go." Xiao Lejing raised her chin and said, "Leave? Why should I leave? This will be my office tomorrow. Besides, she has been dismissed, and this is not the place where she should stay." Director Lee's mouth twitched, and he said, "General Manager Qiao has not been dismissed. She is still the president here." "What?" Xiao Lejing suddenly screamed. "Let's go. Don't embarrass yourself here." Director Lee pulled Xiao Lejing out. "Director Lee, how is this possible? Hasn't the board of directors been held? Why hasn't she been dismissed?" Xiao Lejing struggled and questioned angrily. Director Lee said angrily, "The chairman has been replaced. It was the new chairman who gave the order." "Ah. What about me? What should I do? I don't have any position there. We'll talk about yours later." No. Li Qianqing, you have to give me an explanation. Now I don't have my original position, and I don't have a new position. Where do you want me to go?" The two of them walked out while arguing, and the noise was known to everyone in the building. What kind of people are these? Li Yushan curled her lips with disdain. Qiao Yushan exhaled lightly and said, "Let's work. Busy until noon." Qiao Yushan rubbed her forehead. These days, she has too much work on her hands, which is enough to keep her busy. She didn't look at her mobile phone this morning. When she took out her mobile phone, there were several messages on it, one of which was from Su Weifeng. Qiao Yushan clicked on Su Weifeng's message first. "If you need me, call me anytime." Seeing this message, Qiao Yushan felt very warm in her heart, but suddenly something came to her mind. Could it be that Su Weifeng helped her? But then she thought again, this is impossible. No matter how capable Su Weifeng is, it is impossible for him to directly acquire the head office and become the largest shareholder. The matter has been resolved. A new chairman has come to the head office, and he recognizes me very much. Is it a man? PFFT, a woman. What's the matter? I'm afraid the man has intentions towards me. After Qiao Yushan sent this message, she felt a little embarrassed. Why did it seem a bit like flirting? She wanted to cancel it, but after hesitating for a while, she gave up this approach. "Yes, I was worried. Now that I know it's a girl, I feel relieved. Come to my place tonight." After sending this message, Qiao Yushan suddenly blushed and immediately added, "Come with Zhuangxun. I'm happy today. Let's celebrate together." "No problem. Let's celebrate well tonight." Although there was a lot of work, Qiao Yushan did not work overtime today. After get off work, she went home directly. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxun also came back at this time. The three of them simply changed their clothes and went directly to the supermarket. While the three of them were choosing things, Qiao Yushan roughly told them what happened today. Lin Zhuangxun said happily, "This is so dramatic. I can even make a video with your story." Qiao Yushan said, "Yes, I was also giving up. Who knew there would be such a dramatic change? Our new chairman is also a big beauty." "Beauty? Can anyone be as beautiful as you?" Lin Zhuangxun said casually. Qiao Yushan narrowed her eyes and said as if she was talking in a dream, "She is much prettier than me. Not only is she beautiful, she also has an indescribable temperament. When I'm with her, I feel ashamed of myself. She also has a kind of affinity. Chatting with her makes people feel comfortable from the inside out. Naturally, I admire her and want to work hard for her." Lin Zhuangxun said puzzledly, "Oh my god, there is such a person. Are you sure it's not because of her identity as the chairman that you have such a feeling?" Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, "Absolutely not. This feeling is really wonderful. I can't explain why it is like this. It should be the aura she possesses." Chapter 253 Drunk Sisters. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Then I'll have to see it when I have a chance. I really can't imagine there are such women." Lin Zhuangxun glared and said, "What do you want to see her do? What's your plan?" Qiao Yushan also looked at him with vigilance in her eyes. Su Weifeng grinned and said, "Why are you looking at me like that? I just aroused Yushan's curiosity. What else can I do with her?" Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, "Who knows? You men are all fickle. You forget the old when you see the new. You eat what's in the bowl and think about the pot." Su Weifeng said with a smile, "Then I have to watch it. I won't accept this accusation when I haven't even seen it now." Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin and said, "You have to stop thinking about it, sister, don't you think so?" Qiao Yushan nodded and said, "Yes, men are not good. I'm wronged." Seeing Su Weifeng's wronged look, Lin Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan giggled. Although they talked a lot about Menkecking, the new chairman, Qiao Yushan never mentioned her name. She respected Menkecking very much, so she didn't want to say her name casually. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan naturally didn't ask what the chairman's name was. It didn't make any sense for them to know. Su Weifeng was still pushing the cart, and Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan followed him on the left and right. After picking up something from the shelf and throwing it into the cart, the two of them would directly hold Su Weifeng's arm with natural and casual movements. All this naturally attracted the envious and jealous eyes of countless men. When they arrived at the wine area, Lin Zhuangxuan said, "I'm in a good mood today. Do you want to buy some wine?" Qiao Yushan said happily, "That's right. Tonight, I also want to relax." The three of them picked 2 bottles of red wine and then took a box of beer. After buying things, they went home. When cooking, the three of us squeezed into the kitchen to cook together. I would hold the spoon for a while, and the other would show off my cooking skills. Although Lin Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan's cooking skills were not very good, they had made some progress. The food they made was at least edible, and the food they made by themselves was naturally quite romantic. In addition, it was better than the last time, so they were naturally happy to eat. Qiao Yushan was in a very good mood today. She had been very depressed for so many days, and today she wanted to release this depression completely. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan could understand her mood, so they started drinking with her. The more they drank, the more excited they became. They drank 2 bottles of red wine and a box of beer. They were not satisfied yet. Qiao Yushan also found 2 bottles of Maute. They were supposed to be given to customers, but because of some special reasons, they were left at home. Qiao Yushan had forgotten about it a long time ago, but she found it today. "This is white wine. Do you really want to drink it?" Su Weifeng hesitated. Not only Lin Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan, but even he was a little drunk. If he drank more white wine, wouldn't he be drunk? Lin Zhuangxuan was already drunk, and waved his hand and said, "Drink, why not? We are happy today. Let's drink until we are drunk." Qiao Yushan also said happily, "Yes, I want to indulge myself today and get drunk. Being drunk is not a comfortable thing. Forget it." Su Weifeng held the wine and refused to open it for them. Lin Zhuangxuan came over and grabbed the wine from Su Weifeng's hand, saying, "Are you still a man? We 2 women are not afraid, so what are you afraid of as a grown man? Are you afraid that the 2 of us will eat you?" It's okay, it's okay. Anyway, my sister is your girlfriend. Even if she eats you, it won't be a problem." Qiao Yushan's face flushed, and she said to Su Weifeng in a reproachful way, "Don't spoil the fun please. Open it quickly." Okay, you 2 ladies, I'm convinced by you." Su Weifeng had no choice but to open the wine. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately grabbed it and poured a large glass for all 3 of them. Red wine, beer and white wine. People who drink know that this kind of mixed wine is very easy to get drunk. Although Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan can still drink a little, and they are very excited, they can still hold on in the early stage, but after half a glass of white wine, the 2 are really drunk. Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't hold on first, covering her mouth, and it was obvious that she was about to vomit. Su Weifeng quickly picked her up and rushed to the bathroom, holding her, and vomited violently on the toilet. Before he could finish the work here, there was another noise from the restaurant. Su Weifeng rushed out and saw Qiao Yushan had vomited all over the floor, and her body was also covered with dirt. "I really admire you 2. Su Weifeng gritted his teeth and carried Qiao Yushan directly into the bathroom. As a result, Lin Zhuangxuan also vomited and got all over her body. This time Su Weifeng was really going crazy. Even though he was a top soldier who made countless people tremble with fear, he was also messed up by two drunk women. After a little hesitation, Su Weifeng could not ignore the two people in this state. He first filled the bathtub with water, then took off all the clothes of the two people, and then carried them into the bathtub. After soaking in the hot water, the two people sobered up a little. As women's instinct, seeing each other's situation, both of them screamed in panic. "Why are you yelling? If I don't wash you, can you still sleep?" Su Weifeng glared and yelled. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan turned to look at Su Weifeng. "Oh, it's Weifeng," Lin Zhuangxuan said, and then closed her eyes and leaned back. "Oh, you scared me." Qiao Yushan also muttered and collapsed in the bathtub. "You two are really big, am I so trustworthy?" Su Weifeng shook his head, seeing that they could still sit. He ignored them and quickly cleaned up the dirt in the restaurant and bathroom, and then threw the clothes into the washing machine to wash them quickly. Even though they were both beauties, the vomit still smelled bad. After dealing with all this, Su Weifeng wanted to carry the two out, but the two were soft, as if they had no bones. This was Su Weifeng, otherwise ordinary people really couldn't carry their slippery bodies out. Finally, he carried the two to the bed and covered them with a quilt. Su Weifeng finally let out a long breath. The process just now was simply not what a man should do. It was too difficult to do nothing. As soon as he felt relieved, an inexplicable feeling flowed through his body again, just like the wonderful state that happened several times before. Su Weifeng was immersed in that state all of a sudden, and he didn't know when he had fallen on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 254. Is he a man? Ah. After the first scream, there was a series of screams. "Su Weifeng, you bastard. You're too much. You have a sister, and you still. We'll kill you." The next morning, after a lot of commotion, the three of them finally sat on the sofa. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan both glared at Su Weifeng viciously. Su Weifeng touched the red scratches on his face. If he hadn't used his true energy to protect his skin in a hurry, the two men would have been disfigured. He said with a depressed look, "You two are not doing any good. I served you two drunk uncles, washing and rinsing, and I was exhausted. But you hit and scratched me in return. Don't you have any humanity?" Qiao Yushan said viciously. "Then why did you take off all our clothes?" Su Weifeng said unhappily. "Nonsense, you vomited all over. Why don't you take them off and sleep in them?" Qiao Yushan gritted her teeth and said, "Then you slept with us, and you dare to say you didn't do anything?" Su Weifeng immediately said, "I swear to God, I really didn't do anything. Unless you are not virgins, you don't know whether you did anything or not." Qiao Yushan's face suddenly flushed. Of course, she felt that there was nothing wrong with her body. She snorted and said, "Even if you didn't do that kind of thing, you must have done other dirty things." Qiao Yushan. Su Weifeng also glared at me and said, "Do you know how much I drank, and how much willpower I need to restrain myself from doing anything, while serving you two? Do you know how difficult it is for me? You are still glaring at me now. Do you have any conscience?" Lin Zhuangxuan had been silent beside them, her eyes fixed on the two of them. At this time, she suddenly said, "I can guarantee that I was not violated. Sister, don't blame Weifeng. I feel that he did nothing in the situation yesterday. It's really not easy." Qiao Yushan snorted and said, "Wouldn't he sleep on the sofa outside? Why live with the two of us?" When she thought of Su Weifeng sleeping in the middle in the morning, Qiao Yushan still felt awkward in her heart. Lin Zhuangxuan touched his nose and said, "This matter. Anyway, we have slept in the same bed with him, so it's nothing, right? Nothing?" Qiao Yushan stared at Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan quickly raised her hand and said, "I don't mean anything else. It's okay for me to suffer a little loss. After all, the relationship between you is the most important. I won't pursue it, and you don't have to keep making things difficult for Weifeng." Qiao Yushan snorted. Lin Zhuangxuan said again, "Things have happened. We can only think about it in a positive way. Besides, Weifeng did keep telling us not to drink last night. It was the two of us who insisted on drinking. We can't put all the blame on Weifeng alone. We both have responsibilities as well." Without waiting for Qiao Yushan to speak, Lin Zhuangxuan said immediately, "Unless you think you have suffered a loss in this matter, you are not only angry with Weifeng, but also angry with me, and jealous of me." Qiao Yushan immediately said embarrassedly, "Why should I be angry with you? Why am I jealous of you? Then it's over. We've fought and scratched each other. Just consider it the price Wei Feng paid. Wei Feng, do you have any objection?" Although Su Wei Feng was a little depressed, he still said, "Okay, I'm a man. In this kind of thing, I still took advantage and you suffered a loss. I can understand how you feel. I will definitely learn my lesson and never do such a stupid thing again." Qiao Yushan glared at Su Wei Feng again, and after venting, her emotions calmed down. As a CEO, once she calmed down, her mind became clear. She could accept other things, but she still felt uncomfortable when Su Wei Feng slept in the bed and in the middle. But there was no way to solve this problem, at least not now. She could only stand up and said, "Let's just forget about it. I'll go to the company first." Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Wei Feng and said, "Why don't you go and see my sister off? I don't need to. I've asked the driver to pick me up." Qiao Yushan said, and she opened the door and walked out. Hearing the slam of the security door, Su Wei Feng shrugged helplessly and said, "It's really hard to be a good person." Lin Zhuangxuan immediately rolled her eyes at Su Wei Feng and said, "Student Su Wei Feng, do you feel guilty about what you said?" "How do I feel guilty?" Su Wei Feng rolled his eyes again. "HMPH, you hug one on the left and one on the right, and you are wearing nothing. Don't tell me that you don't feel anything. Even if you didn't do anything, did you get great satisfaction in your heart?" Su Wei Feng was speechless. "HMPH, you have nothing to say, right? We are still sisters, and we look exactly the same. For you men, isn't this what you dream of?" Ahem. Su Wei Feng could only cough twice to express his guilty conscience. "Usually, at least we wear pajamas, but this time you are fine. You don't have anything. You really enjoy it. I don't believe that you didn't even have any extra movements." Su Wei Feng immediately shook his head and said firmly, "Absolutely not. I definitely didn't touch you last night." "Are you so sure?" Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Wei Feng with wide eyes. "Of course." Su Wei Feng raised his chin proudly. Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes were full of disbelief, and she said, "Oh my god, are you a man? Two beautiful women are stripping naked in front of you, and you don't even touch them? PFFT. Su Wei Feng said with a smile, "Do I have to touch you all to be a man?" Lin Zhuangxuan looked at Su Wei Feng with strange eyes, and said, "This is the reaction of a normal man. What are you looking at me like that? I have a normal sexual orientation." I said, "I controlled myself last night. It wasn't difficult. It's just that you are all my friends, and I can't do anything to hurt my friends." "Friends? My sister is your friend too?" "No, what are you enduring? You don't touch me, but you can touch my sister." No, there is a problem between you and my sister." "Oh, right. At that time you swore that you didn't touch us, and that we were virgins." "I'm a virgin, and there's no problem, but how could my sister be a virgin? Explain this to me clearly." Su Wei Feng was dumbfounded. At that time, he was only concerned with confessing himself, and Qiao Yushan was only thinking about whether something had happened, and she completely forgot about the relationship between them. Chapter 255. Finally telling the truth. "Tell me, what's going on with you guys? Have you been lying to me?" Lin Zhuangxuan stood up suddenly, staring down at Su Wei Feng with full of momentum. Su Wei Feng sighed, then smiled bitterly and said, "Actually, the relationship between your sister and I is fake." Lin Zhuangxuan frowned and said, "Fake? What do you mean?" "Our relationship was originally fake. That day, I was forced by my mother to go on a blind date, and I happened to meet your sister. Then your sister was forced by your aunt and uncle to find a boyfriend. We discussed it and helped each other to become a fake couple." Su Wei Feng then told the story from beginning to end. After listening, Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Wei Feng in amazement and did not speak for a long time. Su Wei Feng said carefully, "Zhuangxuan, this is what happened. I'm sorry that I kept it a secret from you. We were mainly afraid that you would tell the truth, and then your sister and I would be forced to go on a blind date." Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly walked around the coffee table and then turned around in the room for several rounds, muttering, "You are fake, and I'm fake on top of fake. I actually thought you were real. What is this? What is this? Zhuangxuan, you." Lin Xuanxuan waved her hand directly, frowned and said, I'm fine. I just feel a little confused. Don't talk. Su Weifeng could only shut his mouth and watched Lin Xuanxuan turn around and around in the living room, making him a little dizzy. Let's go. Go to work. Lin Xuanxuan suddenly stopped, but only said this sentence. Su Weifeng was driving the car, and Lin Xuanxuan sat in the passenger seat, silent all the time, with a dazed look, and no one knew what she was thinking about. Arriving at the company, Lin Xuanxuan started to work, and Su Weifeng was also busy with his own things. The two did not meet again in the morning. At noon, everyone started to eat lunch, and Lin Xuanxuan came to Su Weifeng's office again. Usually, the two had lunch together. While eating, Lin Xuanxuan talked about the work in the morning, and she was in high spirits. It seemed that she had forgotten what happened last night. After eating, Lin Xuanxuan lay directly on the sofa, and Su Weifeng sat next to her and started to give her a massage. This was almost a must-have program for the two at noon. After pressing a few times, Lin Xuanxuan said, don't tell my sister about what you told me. Su Weifeng didn't figure it out for a moment, and said, what is it? Lin Xuanxuan said, of course it's about you and my sister. Su Weifeng said puzzledly, why? Lin Xuanxuan turned around and said, anyway, this matter has to go on, so just act it out. If I knew, she wouldn't be able to continue acting. It's rare to be ignorant. Hey, you're going too far. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, and suddenly realized that the feeling in his hand was not right. He quickly withdrew his hand, his face suddenly flushed, and said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Lin Xuanxuan glared at Su Weifeng fiercely and said, I know it was caused by me turning around, but you're too natural. You just keep touching me like this, and you say you didn't do it last night. No one will believe it. I swear to God. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and shook his head. Lin Xuanxuan said, humph, I'm too lazy to bother with you. It won't kill you if you touch me. Besides, I have to pretend to be your girlfriend from time to time and let you touch me. That's inevitable. Su Weifeng was frightened by Lin Xuanxuan's words and said, you're too open-minded. I'm embarrassed. Don't take advantage of me and act cute. Pay attention to me in the future. Don't think I won't bother with you. You're getting more and more bold. This girl is going to get married in the future. You've taken advantage of me, and my future husband has suffered a great loss. Haha, that's true. How about you take it back? Go away, you bastard. You're getting more and more bold and unscrupulous. The two of them joked a few words and were no longer embarrassed. Su Weifeng said, now this matter, I feel that it is getting more and more complicated. I don't know how it will end in the future. Lin Xuanxuan said nonchalantly, if it can't end, then don't end it. What else can we do? At worst, you can make the fake play real, and you can marry my sister in the end. Marry? Su Weifeng shook his head gently and said, this is absolutely impossible. Lin Xuanxuan turned her head again and said, impossible? Why? Why are you so sure? Do you have someone in your heart? Su Weifeng was in a state of absent-mindedness, and once again pressed the wrong place. When he met Lin Xuanxuan's resentful gaze, he withdrew his hand angrily and said, I'm not suitable for marriage. Lin Xuanxuan did not dwell on being taken advantage of, and said, can you give a reason? It's irresponsible of you to say that. Okay. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, some things are not under my control. When I can't fully control my destiny, I can't give a woman a stable future, so I'm not suitable. Lin Xuanxuan glared and said, what do you mean? Don't talk about it so mysteriously, okay? Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, it's fantasy, so there are some things I can't tell you. Lin Xuanxuan suddenly sat up, put his arm on Su Weifeng's shoulder, and said, is it confidential? I guess so. Su Weifeng nodded. I understand. The military identity you have shown now is also fake, right? Ahem. Su Weifeng did not answer. This was undoubtedly a tacit agreement. Lin Xuanxuan blinked excitedly and said, then I can understand it, but I don't quite understand. What do you want to do now? Recover from the injury. Su Weifeng answered this time. Recover from the injury? You don't look like there's anything wrong with you. Lin Xuanxuan pinched Su Weifeng's arm, with a puzzled look on his face. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, there is naturally no problem with my appearance, but I actually suffered some internal injuries, and my strength has also dropped by more than half. I need to use this period of time to recover my strength. Internal injuries? Oh my god, this is fantasy again. You are so powerful now. If you could fully recover, my god, wouldn't you be a Superman? Su Weifeng chuckled and said, I'm not that powerful. I'm just a little stronger than ordinary people. So what you mean is that after you recover from your injuries, you will return to the army. I have a question. If your injuries cannot be healed, do you not have to go back? Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Weifeng with burning eyes. Chapter 256 Lin Zhuangxuan's problem? Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment. He really hadn't thought about this question. Lin Zhuangxuan said excitedly, tell me, if you can't recover from your injury, do you have to go back? Su Weifeng was just in a trance for a moment, and now he shook his head, smiled slightly, and said, no, I have roughly found a way to recover. Ah, found a way. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly looked very depressed. Su Weifeng smiled and said, what do you mean? I can recover, shouldn't you be happy for me? Lin Zhuangxuan said depressedly, what are you happy about? You ran away after recovery. What should we do? You guys? Lin Zhuangxuan said quickly, oh, what about my sister? Su Weifeng said, anyway, the relationship between us is fake. I will leave, and we can do our own things in the past 2 years. Heartless guy. Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng fiercely, and then lay down on the sofa again. Su Weifeng continued to massage her, and both of them fell silent. Su Weifeng is not stupid. He can understand what Lin Zhuangxuan meant. She still hopes that he will be with Qiao Yushan. However, for a soldier who has been trained by the country for so many years, Su Weifeng has a supreme love for the army. His glory is there, his comrades are there, and almost everything he has is in the army. The idea of dedicating everything for the country and the army has long been deeply rooted in his heart. As for the matter with Qiao Yushan, Su Weifeng's relationship with her is indeed good now, but he only regards her as a friend. In fact, Su Weifeng feels that the relationship between him and Qiao Yushan is not as close as that with Lin Zhuangxuan. Just like before, he touched the place that he shouldn't touch twice, and Lin Zhuangxuan didn't mind. Looking at Lin Zhuangxuan, Su Weifeng's eyes softened a lot. He really felt very relaxed and happy when he was with Lin Zhuangxuan. In addition, he experienced that wonderful state several times with her. Thinking carefully about these several times, it seems that they were all very close to Lin Zhuangxuan, and then something inexplicably happened. Is there something special about Lin Zhuangxuan? During this period, Su Weifeng was actually thinking about this problem, but he had always been looking for the reason in himself. Today, he suddenly set his sights on Lin Zhuangxuan. But, Su Weifeng felt a little bit at a loss. Could it be that he had to have something intimate with Lin Zhuangxuan again, so that it would be effective? It hurts. Are you going to retaliate? Lin Zhuangxuan's sudden cry interrupted Su Weifeng's thoughts. Su Weifeng quickly raised his hand and said apologetically, I was a little distracted just now, and then I hit you a little too hard. Huh, you did it on purpose. Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng, then turned his head and asked, what are you thinking about? How could you be distracted? Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, Zhuangxuan, my method of recovery may be in you. It was only when I was with you that I felt a progress in recovery. Ah, me. Lin Zhuangxuan widened her eyes, then her long eyelashes fluttered, and she blinked twice. Yes, it's you. The first time was when we were by the creek at my grandma's house. You rested your head on my legs, and I had this feeling. The most recent time was last night, when I put you on the bed, and then that wonderful feeling came again. Lin Zhuangxuan was stunned for a moment, then rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng and said, oh my god, doesn't that mean you took advantage of me, and then you have this feeling? It seems so, but it doesn't seem so. Just like now, although I'm giving you a massage, for a man, I'm also taking advantage, so I don't have that feeling. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said, that must be because I didn't take advantage enough. Not enough. It's really possible. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment. Ah, you bastard, you want to take advantage of me, and you even find such a high-sounding excuse. I despise you. As she said that, Lin Zhuangxuan's little hand pinched Su Weifeng's arm fiercely. Su Weifeng hurriedly said, I'm definitely not making excuses. It is indeed like this, and I can't say why. I now suspect that you have some special physique, so you have such an effect on me. No way. Lin Zhuangxuan sat up again, with an intense excitement on his face. Su Weifeng nodded and said, I suspect so. Then, when you were with Qiao Yushan, didn't you have this feeling? Su Weifeng answered with certainty, no, I've only experienced it a few times on you. Wow. Lin Zhuangxuan's eyebrows flew with joy, and she said excitedly, does that mean I have something like the 9 heavens mysterious veins, the Tein absolute veins, or the like mentioned in the novels? Or the heavenly yin body, the 9 yang body, or something like that? Su Weifeng's face turned dark, and he said, those are all made up in novels. There's no such thing. Not everything in novels is necessarily false, right? Then let me ask you, you can't find a way to recover from others, but you find it in me. Doesn't that mean that my body is special? Since it's special, then I must have something special, but we just don't know it now. I think it may be so, but it definitely shouldn't be as ridiculous as you say. Whether it's ridiculous or not, I'm special anyway. So tell me, if I develop it, will I be as strong as you? So powerful, wow, 1 against 10. It's exciting to think about it. Su Weifeng was dazed, and said for a long time, you are a girl, what do you think of these? It's so cool. Su Weifeng's face was dark again. Su Weifeng's arm had a small fox's smile on his face, and said, Brother Weifeng, how do you try? People cooperate with you. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257. Do you like Zhuangxuan? I haven't thought about it yet. Let me go first. Su Weifeng felt a creepy feeling. He dodged backwards while pulling Lin Zhuangxuan's hand. Lin Zhuangxuan, however, held on very tightly and even pressed against Su Weifeng's body, her voice becoming even more coquettish, and she said, Brother Weifeng, then just try it. Don't worry, I'm ready and can do anything. Su Weifeng was about to cry and said, Zhuangxuan, don't be like this, I can't stand you. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, I'm cooperating with you, but you're still like this. Are you still a man? It was you who said you wanted to find the reason in me, and now you don't want to do it. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, my aunt, if I say I want to try, then you have to be more normal, okay? I really can't stand you being like this. Hateful. Lin Zhuangxuan hit Su Weifeng, and finally she was not so annoyed with him, so she said, okay, then you tell me, what do you want me to do? Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment, and said, I haven't thought about it yet. Let me make a plan, and then we can try it little by little, okay? This kind of thing is not a trivial matter. If I make a mistake, it may make me obsessed. It's so serious, I won't make trouble with you anymore. Lin Zhuangxuan stuck out her tongue in fear, and sat up straight. Su Weifeng just wanted to scare Lin Zhuangxuan. Seeing that she finally stopped making trouble, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, don't do this in the future. At least I feel that it is useless for you to get close to me in this way, that is not your own. Lin Zhuangxuan pursed her lips and said, I know, you are really a big blockhead who doesn't understand romance. If this girl gets close to you, she will naturally act like a spoiled child like this. It was getting late, and the afternoon work started again. Lin Zhuangxuan asked Su Weifeng to study the method as soon as possible before going out. It seemed that her body was not ordinary, which made Lin Zhuangxuan full of expectations. Su Weifeng didn't have much to do in the afternoon, so he studied this plan seriously. After carefully recalling every situation that produced that state, Su Weifeng summed up several characteristics. The first is quiet. When the two of them were together, they were in a very quiet situation. The second is intimacy. The two of them had physical contact, and Su Weifeng felt moved. The third is occasional. Not every time such a situation is met, that kind of wonderful state will be produced. Combining these 3 points, Su Weifeng still feels that there are some important things that he has not captured. And if he really wants to find out the reason, he really needs to let Lin Zhuangxuan cooperate with him to try and slowly find out the real reason. However, Su Weifeng subconsciously rubbed his nose. Trying this kind of thing, won't it cause trouble? At around 4 o'clock, Lin Zhuangxuan ran to Su Weifeng's office again and asked, "Did Qiao Yushan look for you?" Su Weifeng's heart skipped a beat. Since Lin Zhuangxuan didn't pursue what happened last night, he subconsciously ignored it and forgot about Qiao Yushan. He hurriedly said, "No, what happened? She just asked me how you and I communicated. I said I scolded you and made you feel so angry. Then I told her that it was not easy for you to do this while drunk, and we can't blame her too much. But she was still a little unhappy. I feel that her biggest problem is that we both slept in the same bed with you. Otherwise, I usually live with you, and she doesn't care." Su Weifeng grinned and said, "Anything else? She asked us to go to her house tonight, but I don't think it's a big deal. Otherwise she will ignore you." Lin Zhuangxuan paused, then came to Su Weifeng and said with a smile, "In fact, I have discovered another problem. Although you are fake, Qiao Yushan seems to really care about you now. She is actually jealous now." Su Weifeng shook his head and said, "You think too much. If you don't believe it, forget it." Lin Zhuangxuan smiled mischievously and said no more. When Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan arrived at Qiao Yushan's house, Qiao Yushan had not returned yet. It was not until more than an hour later that Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan prepared dinner and she came back at dinner time. Su Weifeng was still somewhat uneasy, but Qiao Yushan's face was normal. She talked to him and Lin Zhuangxuan normally, as if what happened last night was over. However, after dinner, when the three of them sat on the sofa, Qiao Yushan's face became serious, and Su Weifeng immediately knew that this matter had not been over. "Weifeng, Zhuangxuan, I have a serious question for you, and I hope you can answer me sincerely." Su Weifeng nodded and said, "Okay." Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, "Does it have to be so serious?" Qiao Yushan glared at Lin Zhuangxuan before saying, "During the time you've been together, especially Zhuangxuan who has been by your side as your girlfriend, do you have any feelings for her?" Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment and felt that this question seemed a little difficult to answer. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately shouted, "Qiao Yushan, what do you mean? I'm helping you, doing it for you. How come you sound like you're doubting the relationship between Weifeng and me? You're going too far." Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, "There's nothing wrong with this. I just want to know your true thoughts. There's no way to avoid this kind of thing." Lin Zhuangxuan stood up and said, "Qiao Yushan, I've helped you so much, but you actually doubt me so much. Are you going to piss me off to death?" Qiao Yushan ignored Lin Zhuangxuan and looked at Su Weifeng and said, "Weifeng, please answer this question of mine seriously." Su Weifeng met Qiao Yushan's gaze and immediately understood what she meant. He smiled and said, "Zhuangxuan has a lively personality. I'm really happy to be with her, but this kind of happiness is a kind of happiness between friends, not the kind of love between a man and a woman. You're thinking too much." Qiao Yushan stared into Su Weifeng's eyes and said, "Really?" Su Weifeng smiled even more sincerely and said, "Of course it's true. I've always been sincere to my friends and serious about feelings. I won't harm others for things that I shouldn't have and that I can't take the responsibility for." Lin Zhuangxuan said angrily at this time, "Listen, we are innocent, Qiao Yushan, and you actually doubt us. I tell you, I will break up with you and will never get involved in your affairs again. You have to serve your boyfriend by yourself. I have suffered so much, and in the end, this happens. Am I wronged?" Qiao Yushan frowned slightly. She could feel the absolute sincerity of Su Weifeng's answer, which made her have to believe it. Then, all the words she had prepared to say seemed unnecessary. Chapter 258 Let's go together. Qiao Yushan pulled the angry Lin Zhuangxuan back and said, "I see that you have a good relationship. If you want to be together, I will support you." Lin Zhuangxuan glared at him and said, "What are you doing? Are you trying to show that you are magnanimous? You even give in to your boyfriend. How can you treat a relationship like this? Weifeng is a person. He is your boyfriend, not an object. If you give him away directly like this, doesn't it show that you are great?" Qiao Yushan was a little embarrassed at this time and said, yes, I really shouldn't think like that. Not to mention that Wei Feng and I are like this because of you, and there is no other relationship. Even if there is, you shouldn't give up easily. If you like someone, then you like him. How can you be so irresponsible about a relationship? You are also a boss. Do you like an irresponsible employee? You are usually so harsh on others. Why are you so casual with yourself? Yes, my fault. You are absolutely right. Qiao Yushan had to learn from him humbly. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes at Qiao Yushan again and said, Humph. You really don't take this relationship seriously. I'm really worried about your emotional intelligence. Qiao Yushan glared and said, that's enough. Is this your attitude of admitting your mistakes? This is just me. If it was someone else, I'd see if I would turn against you. Lin Zhuangxuan glared again. Qiao Yushan's momentum was suppressed by Lin Zhuangxuan again. She had to listen to Lin Zhuangxuan's scolding. After being scolded for about 5 or 6 minutes, Lin Zhuangxuan stopped, and Qiao Yushan breathed a sigh of relief. Humph, you always scold me, and I finally let out a sigh of relief. Lin Zhuangxuan was very proud at this time. Qiao Yushan was at a loss, whether to laugh or cry, and said, okay, my dear sister, I will have to rely on your help in the future. TSK, I won't help you, lest you then turn against me. I won't be a good person, and I will end up being blamed. Despite the quarrel, Lin Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan still had a good relationship and soon returned to normal. By the way, I feel like you two always appear together recently. I'm not suspicious, I'm just a little puzzled. Your companies are very close to each other? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Qiao Yushan and shook her head repeatedly, looking as if she was disappointed in her friend, and said, you're really something. You're only thinking about your company's affairs, and you don't even know where your boyfriend's company is. Let me tell you, my company is the one that Wei Feng helped me to attract investment for, and now it has begun to take shape. Qiao Yushan suddenly realized and said, you two did it together? I said you two always appear together. Lin Zhuangxuan said proudly, let me tell you, even though your company is large in scale and has many people, my company is not bad either. Then I'd be relieved if Wei Feng helped you. Then he rolled his eyes at Lin Zhuangxuan again and said, why are you so proud? If Wei Feng hadn't helped you, could you have done it? Su Wei Feng said with a smile, Zhuangxuan is a very capable person. I don't know much about this business. I just joined in the fun. She has made such achievements through her own efforts. She should not have had any pressure before. Now more than 20 people rely on her for food. Her sense of responsibility has been established. When Lin Zhuangxuan heard Su Wei Feng praising her, she immediately straightened her chest and became even more proud. Qiao Yushan chuckled and said, yes, Mr. Lin, you are amazing. It seems that I can't treat you as a child anymore. Humph, you are still working after all. I'm the boss. You can't compare with me. Seeing Lin Zhuangxuan's tail rising to the sky after a few compliments, Su Wei Feng and Qiao Yushan couldn't help laughing. After a few people chatted like this, time passed quickly, and it was soon past 9 o'clock. Everyone also cleaned up and prepared to rest. Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smile, I'll sleep on the sofa tonight and make room for you. Qiao Yushan blushed and spat. How can I bear to let my sister sleep on the sofa? Let Wei Feng sleep on the sofa. He's a grown man. He can do anything. Lin Zhuangxuan looked at Qiao Yushan's concealing look and couldn't help feeling funny. She knew that they were not really boyfriend and girlfriend at all. Every time she saw Qiao Yushan pretending, she found it particularly fun. She blinked her eyes and said, that will delay your good thing. You haven't been together for a long time. This look was not only teasing Qiao Yushan, but also teasing Su Wei Feng. There was another meaning as well, which only Su Wei Feng could understand. Su Wei Feng also rolled his eyes at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, okay, you guys go and rest quickly. I'm sleepy too. Before entering the bedroom, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly poked his head out again, chuckled, and said, Wei Feng, why don't you come too, since we were together yesterday anyway. Su Wei Feng almost bumped into the coffee table, and his face suddenly became red. Although he didn't do anything about what happened last night, it was still quite nostalgic when he thought about it afterwards. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed out loud, but immediately shouted, oh, don't pull our ears. You haven't learned anything else from your aunt, but you have learned this skill of pulling ears. Qiao Yushan's angry voice came from the room. Humph, you dead girl, you are really thick-skinned. You can say such words. If I don't teach you a lesson, you will make a fuss. Lying on the sofa, Su Weifeng also showed a smile on his face. Although he couldn't develop feelings with this pair of sisters, he had to say that he was really happy. This kind of happiness was completely absent in the army. The next day, the provincial capital required the company to send people to study. This kind of study was organized by the government. Culture has always been highly valued by the propaganda department. Now some video companies, in order to attract attention, have filmed a lot of things that are borderline, even some erotic, and some things that have a bad guiding effect. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't care much about this kind of publicity. In addition, the company was very busy now, and she couldn't spare time to study, so she could only let Su Weifeng go to study. But the requirement was that each company send a supervisor and a business backbone. Finally, after some research, Sun Yumeng was sent. Lin Zhuangxuan also warned Su Weifeng specifically, I warn you, don't bully Sun Yumeng. If you dare to lay a hand on the little girl, I will see how I will deal with you when I come back. Su Weifeng smiled and said, you are really too deep into the play. You know the relationship between me and your sister, and you are still staring at me. Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin and said, fake play must be done for real. Anyway, in the past 2 years, whether it is real or fake, you are her boyfriend. Chapter 259 Real or not. Sitting on the train with Su Weifeng, Sun Yumeng's cute little face was full of excitement. Boss Su, this is the first time I've been sent out by the company to study. I'm so happy. Su Weifeng smiled and said, it's just a study. Are you so excited? Sun Yumeng smiled sweetly and said, of course I'm excited. This is because the leader values me. I will work harder and study hard this time. The most likable thing about Sun Yumeng is her simplicity, coupled with her cute look of bending eyebrows when she smiles. More than 2 hours later, Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng arrived at a training center in the province. After signing up, the two went back to their rooms. At this time, they simply packed up and had to go downstairs for dinner. When signing up, Su Weifeng found that the participants this time were all well-known large film and television companies in the province. There were not many small companies like his. I don't know why their company was selected. Sun Yumeng had never learned anything in her previous jobs, but this time she was here to learn, and this was a high-level study, which really excited her. Even the rooms they lived in were all individually equipped, and they were better than her own home. After she sorted out her clothes, she studied around in the room for a while and stood at the window looking at the scenery in the yard outside, and she couldn't help but feel a little moved. She took out her cell phone and sent a message to Su Weifeng. Mr. Su, have you finished packing? Do you want to go downstairs and take a look? You go down first. I have something to deal with here. I'll go down to find you later. By the way, don't go outside. Okay, then I'll go downstairs and take a look. There was also a smiley face at the end. Sun Yumeng went downstairs and turned to the yard. The level of this training center is really good, with pavilions, gardens, fish ponds, and everything else in the yard. Sun Yumeng took pictures while walking, and she was really happy. Ouch, are you blind? Sun Yumeng was happily taking photos when she accidentally stepped on a woman behind her. Before she could apologize, the other party started to curse her. Sun Yumeng was stunned for a moment, but quickly apologized. I'm sorry, I was so busy taking pictures that I didn't pay attention to what was behind me. I'm really sorry. The woman was wearing a top-notch channel dress, with a set of Bulgari jewelry on her wrists and neck. She looked very good, about 25 or 26 years old, but at this moment her eyebrows were raised, and she said to Sun Yumeng aggressively, is sorry useful? If sorry is useful, then what are the police for? I really don't know where this little girl came from. She has no knowledge at all. She's just taking pictures. What is there to take pictures of here? Sun Yumeng felt a little aggrieved and said, sister, I admitted my mistake. What are you like? The woman snorted and said, which company are you from? What do you do? Sun Yumeng lacks social experience. The other party was obviously probing her, but she said very honestly, "I'm from Yangcheng Dream Film and Television Culture Company. Our company shoots short videos." This woman's name is Cheyenne Fear. She is from the famous Jinhu Film and Television Company in the province. Their company is a listed company with assets of tens of billions. She used to have a high position in the company, but recently she was demoted because of her mistakes. It was just right for her to learn about this matter, so she was asked to come. She has been very upset these days. Now that Sun Yumeng stepped on her, it was like the anger she had been holding back had found a breakthrough. The most important thing is that the other party is an ordinary employee of a small company. In her eyes, such a person is a small figure, so it is inevitable that she is quite unscrupulous. "Do you know what kind of shoes I have?" "What shoes?" Sun Yumeng felt something was wrong and asked stutteringly. Cheyenne Fear sneered and said, "This is a limited edition of Harmony. There are only 300 pairs in the world. This pair of shoes is 130,000. Ah, so expensive?" Sun Yumeng was shocked. She has been writing scripts recently and knows a little about luxury goods, but she was also shocked when she heard the price. Shoes like this are not just for wearing, they are also a symbol of status. Now you stepped on them. What do you say we should do? Sun Yumeng looked down at the shoes on Cheyenne Fear's feet. Although there was a mark on the tip of the shoe, it was obviously not damaged. She couldn't help but said hesitantly, "It seems not damaged." "Not damaged?" Cheyenne Fear's voice suddenly became sharp. "Are these shoes measured by whether they are damaged or not? You stepped on them, and it looks fine on the outside, but the leather and the shoe shape have been damaged. What, do you want to shirk responsibility?" No. Sun Yumeng waved her hands in panic, then bit her lip and said, "Sister, you tell me what to do, I will take the responsibility." Cheyenne Fear curled her lips in disdain and said, "You will take the responsibility? I want you to pay compensation, 130,000. You will pay it? Can you afford it?" "This? I really can't afford to pay for this." Sun Yumeng's eyes were red with grievance. How could she afford to pay 130,000 yuan? The most important thing is that she had to pay so much for just stepping on someone's foot. This was even more unfair. Cheyenne Fear snorted again and said, "I can see that you are a poor guy. You work for a small video company, and you also come to participate in such a study. I really don't know what the organizer is doing." After looking down on her, Cheyenne Fear raised her chin again and said, "If you don't want to pay, then you can just clean my shoes." "Ah, okay. Sun Yumeng was stunned for a moment, and then she couldn't help but agree excitedly. For her, such a simple request was the best result. She squatted down quickly, took out a tissue, and was about to wipe it. "Wait!" Cheyenne Fear suddenly shouted. Sun Yumeng raised her head and looked at Cheyenne Fear in confusion. Cheyenne Fear sneered and said, "Do you think it's that simple? Don't you want to apologize for the damage you caused to my shoes?" "This?" Sun Yumeng was a little confused. Cheyenne Fear looked down at Sun Yumeng, and her tone was also condescending, saying, "It's very simple. Kneel down and clean my shoes, and I won't bother with you." "Ah." Sun Yumeng was stunned for a moment, biting her lips with her teeth. She could accept other things, but kneeling down was an insult to her personality. "What? You don't want to kneel? If you don't kneel, you have to pay." Cheyenne Fear's tone was full of arrogance. Chapter 260. "I'll pay for it all." I. Sun Yumeng's tears welled up in her eyes, but she had to hold them back. "Stand up." A voice rang out from behind Sun Yumeng. When Sun Yumeng heard the voice, her trembling body straightened up all of a sudden, and she straightened her back and stood up. "Boss Su." Sun Yumeng pouted in grievance, and tears flowed out involuntarily. Su Weifeng snorted and said, "Don't cry. People are bullying you. Crying won't solve the problem." "Yeah." Sun Yumeng wiped her tears vigorously, bit her lips hard, took a deep breath, and stood up straight. Cheyenne Fear looked at Su Weifeng, curled her lips in disdain, and said, "Oh, are you the boss of Dream Film and Television?" Su Weifeng looked at Cheyenne Fear coldly, and said, "Yes, I'm her boss. Tell me what you want to say." "Okay." He stepped on my limited edition Harmony shoes. "What do you say I should do?" Su Weifeng didn't even look at him, and said lightly, "Stepped on him? Okay, then I'll compensate you." "Compensate? 130,000. Are you sure you want to compensate? Xian Fei was a little confused by Su Weifeng's words. Su Weifeng said, yes, this kind of limited edition shoes will naturally be uncomfortable to wear. If someone steps on it, I will compensate you. Xian Fei raised the corner of her mouth and said arrogantly, oh, you are sensible. Xian Fei thought that Su Weifeng was afraid of her big company's background and took the initiative to surrender. She snorted and said, then don't say that I'm bullying you. 20,000 yuan. Let's forget it. Su Weifeng raised the corner of his mouth and showed a smile, saying, no, if I want to compensate, I will pay the full price, otherwise it will seem so insincere. Are you sure? Xian Fei narrowed her eyes and was more certain that the other party was trying to please her. Of course. Su Weifeng answered with certainty, I will transfer the money to you now. Sun Yumeng suddenly became anxious, pulled Su Weifeng's arm, and stammered, Boss Su, this. Su Weifeng smiled slightly, patted the back of her hand, and said, it's okay, we are not the kind of people who dare not take responsibility. It's our fault, so we have to admit it. Xian Fei opened the payment code on her mobile phone, handed the phone to Su Weifeng, and said, you are quite sensible little boss. If our company has any cooperation projects in the future, I can consider you. Su Weifeng smiled faintly, scanned the code, and transferred the money directly, saying, see if you received it? Sun Yumeng watched Su Weifeng transfer 130,000 yuan, and her eyes suddenly turned red. This is 130,000 yuan, and he just gave it to this unreasonable woman. Don't mention how much grievance she felt in her heart. Received. Looking at the prompt on the phone, Xian Fei felt a little dreamy. She just wanted to vent her anger, but she didn't expect to actually receive 130,000 yuan. 130,000 yuan is not a lot of money for her, but this way of getting it still makes her feel quite good. Add WeChat and find me if you have any problems in the future. Xian Fei also showed a smile on her face. That's not necessary. Su Weifeng shook his head lightly. Xian Fei frowned. She thought that the other party had bought it, but now he didn't even add WeChat. What was he doing? However, this was clearly not giving her face, so she snorted and said, you don't know how to be polite. Then he turned and left. Just leaving like that? Su Weifeng's light voice sounded behind something. Xian Fei stopped and turned to look at Su Weifeng. I gave you 130,000 yuan, and your shoes are mine. Now you have to return my shoes to me, right? What? Xian Fei's eyes widened immediately. Sun Yumeng was stunned for a moment, and suddenly she was happy. She felt that Su Weifeng was not a person who would suffer losses easily. How could he suffer such a big loss this time? It turned out that there was a backup plan, but what should he do next? She still couldn't figure it out. Su Weifeng said calmly, I bought these shoes for 130,000 yuan. They are limited edition Armani shoes. You'd better take them off right now, otherwise I will charge you for rent. You should know that, even if you have money, there is no place to rent these shoes. Am I fucking crazy? Xian Fei stared at Su Weifeng with wide eyes. Su Weifeng snorted and said, what's the matter? You should be considered a person of status, right? You just forcibly snatched someone else's shoes? If this gets out, it will be a face-saving thing, right? You are really fucking sick. I really don't want to pay attention to you. After saying that, Xian Fei turned around and walked away. But after taking 2 steps, her knees seemed to be pricked by a needle, and her legs suddenly lost strength. She screamed and fell to the ground. If she hadn't held on quickly with both hands, she would have fallen flat on her face. But even so, she fell very hard. The bones of her 2 forearms were broken by the small stones on the path, and her knees were kneeling on the ground, which was indescribable pain. Ah! With a scream, Xian Fei turned over and sat up. Looking at the blood flowing from her knees, her scream became even more miserable. Su Weifeng immediately turned on the mocking mode and said, this person, wearing other people's shoes, his feet are not used to it. You. Xian Fei pointed at Su Weifeng and gritted her teeth. Su Weifeng looked at the blood flowing from her legs and arms, without any sympathy, and said lightly, from now on, the rental fee for my shoes is 10,000 per minute. If you don't rent them, take them off immediately. If you rent them, I will start counting. I won't take them off. I don't care whether you count or not. Cheyenne Fair struggled to stand up and really wanted to come up and scratch Su Weifeng's face. Okay, this deal, I think it's a good deal. This place was originally considered deep in the park. At this time, basically no one came here, only the three of them. But Cheyenne Fair's screams were louder and more miserable, so she called a few people who were also wandering in the park over. Hey, Director Cheyenne, what's wrong with you? Those people obviously knew Cheyenne Fair, and after they came over, they asked directly with concern. Seeing an acquaintance, Cheyenne Fair suddenly became more confident and immediately said angrily, "These two little bastards actually wanted to steal my shoes. I didn't give them to them, and they even pushed me down. Is there such a thing? What do you two do?" Those people didn't know Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng, so they naturally believed what Cheyenne Fair said and glared at Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng. Chapter 261 Scare you to death. Cheyenne Fair snorted at this time and said, "They are also here to learn, but they are from an unknown small company in Yangcheng, called Dream Film and Television. They just shoot some short videos or something. I have never heard of this name." The industry of shooting short videos has also emerged in the past 1 or 2 years. For ordinary people, it seems to be good, but for those who have been in the film and television industry for many years, such short video companies are not taken seriously at all. After all, they invest in large productions of hundreds of millions or even hundreds of millions. Oh my god, people from a small company are so arrogant and want to steal other people's shoes. Your behavior is really weird. A pair of limited edition shoes is a top luxury for Director Cheyenne, but for people in such a small company, it is a top luxury. Now some people are particularly obsessed with this limited edition shoes. I haven't seen it before, but today I have opened my eyes. This is really a pair of top-notch shoes. No, it's not like that. Sun Yumeng was a little panicked when she saw so many people and hurriedly explained the cause and effect. During this time, Cheyenne Fair wanted to interrupt Sun Yumeng, but Su Weifeng looked at her coldly and said, "There is nothing that cannot be seen, so why should you be afraid to say it out loud?" Cheyenne Fair snorted and said no more. Even if she was wrong, these were old acquaintances, and naturally they would not be biased against her. After Sun Yumeng finished speaking, everyone's faces were inevitably a little strange. The previous scene was indeed Cheyenne Fair deliberately bullying people. But even if someone from a big company bullies someone from a small company, it is nothing great. One person said, "Forget it, we are all studying together, so let's forget about this matter. Yes, we still have to be here for a few days, and we will see each other every day. In the future, Cheyenne Fair will give you any project, which will be enough for a small company like yours to live on for a year." At this time, Su Weifeng said lightly, "It's been 10 minutes. What do you mean? Do you have to ask for money?" One person frowned immediately. Su Weifeng's attitude clearly showed that he didn't give them face. Su Weifeng said calmly, "She was wearing my shoes, so what's wrong with me collecting some rent? You guys are good enough. We are all in this business, and small companies like yours have often asked us for help. It's not good for you to offend everyone at this time." Cheyenne Fair sneered and said, "They don't take us seriously at all." Su Weifeng was so sensible, so Cheyenne Fair was naturally happy to involve everyone. "Give me some face and let this matter go," a man who looked quite majestic said. Su Weifeng looked at him coldly and said, "I'm sorry, I won't give this face to anyone. It's been 12 minutes. The man's face suddenly turned pale, and he said angrily, "You don't want to be in this business anymore, right? If you make us angry, you will have a hard time in this business in the future." Su Weifeng sneered and said, "If you really have this ability, I don't mind. You. When Su Weifeng didn't give them face, all the people here suddenly found that they had no tricks. They couldn't just fight with Su Weifeng directly. What they could do was to do it afterwards. "Let's go. Don't pay attention to this guy. I don't believe that he can still take your shoes off." A younger man snorted and was also tough. Several people also clamored and took Cheyenne Fair away. But Cheyenne Fair had just taken 2 steps when her feet softened again. If she hadn't been holding on to someone else, she would have fallen again. Several people quickly supported her, and Su Weifeng's voice sounded again, saying, "These are not your shoes. If you wear them on your feet, you will definitely fall down. You did it. Fei turned around and glared at Su Zifeng. Yes, you want to steal my shoes, so I can't just let it go. You can try again and see if you can walk out safely. And you. Su Weifeng's eyes swept across the faces of several people one by one and said lightly, you can also taste the feeling of falling down after taking 2 steps. Su Weifeng's words were very plain, but the meaning of these words revealed a strong threat. Several people felt a little scared when they heard it, and their backs were whizzing with cold air. None of them saw Su Weifeng take action, and then Fei was like this, which was almost like an evil magic. For such unknown and mysterious things, anyone would be afraid in their hearts. They are all rich and powerful people, and they often cherish their lives more than ordinary people, so they are even more afraid of such things. The few people who were originally surrounding Fei all subconsciously moved a few steps to the side and kept a certain distance from Fei. What do you want to do? Fei felt that her legs had no strength at this time, and she kept shaking, as if her strength was really taken away. Su Weifeng naturally did not do anything to her now, and it was completely Fei's psychological effect. When he came to Fei, Su Weifeng squinted his eyes, with a faint smile on his face, and said, what do I want to do? Of course I'm here to collect the rent. It's been 20 minutes now, and it's 200,000. Do you want to continue renting? Fei felt like she was being stared at by a demon at this time. She sat down on the ground and stammered, no, no, no. Oh, you don't want to rent it after just renting it for such a short time. Well, I do business on a voluntary and fair basis, and I will never force buying or selling. Pay the rent now. After saying that, Su Weifeng took out his mobile phone and clicked on the payment code. Fei took out her mobile phone without hesitation, trembling, and quickly scanned the code and paid 200,000 yuan directly. Su Weifeng nodded with satisfaction and said, well, I got it. It's not bad. Although you wore it for an extra minute just now, I will forgive you. Now, give me back the shoes. Ah, I still want to give you the shoes? Fei's mouth twitched. Su Weifeng glared and said, nonsense, I spent 130,000 yuan to buy these shoes. I have the transfer record. What, you still want to snatch them back? A man said boldly, this, brother, you have received 200,000 yuan, and have made 70,000 yuan. Is that enough? Su Weifeng's face sank and said, that's the rent. I didn't sell the shoes. Take them off. Then Fei, buy them back. Another person came up with an idea. Su Weifeng said coldly, she wants to buy them, but I really don't want to sell them. If she doesn't take them off, I will charge her for rent again. Chapter 262. This guy's not easy to mess with. Su Weifeng put great pressure on Fei. Although the people around him didn't feel it as strongly, they were also suppressed and dared not speak nonsense. Fei finally took off her shoes obediently. Su Weifeng directly pulled Sun Yumeng and stepped over the shoes and then walked away. Fei and the others looked at each other in surprise. Even if the shoes were worn by Fei, they were still very valuable. If they were taken to the second-hand auction market, not to mention the original price, but at a discount of 80% or 90%, there would definitely be countless people who wanted them, and they could even be sold at a higher price. Now Su Weifeng just stepped on them twice and then left. It was obvious that he didn't want them, but just wanted to humiliate Fei. Fei gritted her teeth and went over to take the shoes and put them on. After all, the gravel road here was very uncomfortable, and it was very uncomfortable to walk without shoes. But as soon as she put them on, the shoes actually fell apart, and the soles and uppers were separated. Oh my god. Several people's eyes widened, and they stepped on their shoes to pieces. When they thought of Fei's fall for no reason just now, they felt a chill in their hearts. Who is this guy? But everyone had the same idea in their hearts. This man is definitely not easy to mess with. After Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng walked a distance away, Sun Yumeng said softly, Boss Su, I'm in trouble again. Su Weifeng patted Sun Yumeng's shoulder, and he didn't have the imposing aura just now, but he said very seriously, Sun Yumeng, you can't be too cowardly. The more cowardly you are, the more others will bully you. So, when you need to be strong, you must be strong. Then the people who bully you will know that you are not easy to mess with and will not be so unscrupulous. Sun Yumeng pouted. Su Weifeng shook his head, sighed, and said, my request may be too high. It is difficult to change a person's character. But in the future, when you encounter something, don't be afraid first. You should think that I can help you. Yeah. Sun Yumeng nodded immediately and said, I won't be afraid anymore. Su Weifeng was a little amused. In fact, he just meant the same thing, but just said it in a different way. Sun Yumeng accepted it directly. Boss Su, am I useless? Sun Yumeng bit her lip and said softly. Su Weifeng said, everyone has something they are good at. Arguing with others is not something you are good at, so you don't have to take it to heart. Besides, I made 70,000 yuan because of your business. PFFT. Sun Yumeng laughed and said, Mr. Su, you are really smart. I was wondering just now why you just lost money. I was scared. Now I owe you another 130,000 yuan, and I can't pay it back in the future. Su Weifeng laughed and said, haha, I'm not the kind of person who will suffer losses easily. If you want to take my money, I will make him pay a greater price. Yes. Sun Yumeng also laughed happily, but her face suddenly became a little strange, and there seemed to be a faint blush. What's wrong? Su Weifeng asked doubtfully. Nothing. Sun Yumeng immediately shook her head to deny it. Su Weifeng knew that Sun Yumeng seemed to have something on her mind, but Sun Yumeng didn't want to say it, so he didn't ask about it. After all, everyone has their own privacy. Sun Yumeng stole a glance at Su Weifeng again. Last time, Su Weifeng gave his family 500,000 yuan. Now he said that he never suffered any loss. What did Su Weifeng want with this 500,000 yuan? Could it be her? Impossible. President Su and President Lin have such a good relationship. President Su is not the kind of playboy. She and Su Weifeng often work together alone, but Su Weifeng never showed any intention towards her. He took care of her like an older brother. It was almost time, so the two went directly to the restaurant. The restaurant is a buffet, and the dishes are quite good. It was the first time for Sun Yumeng to eat in this way. After serving the food, the two found a place to sit down. Sun Yumeng whispered, the food here is really good. Su Weifeng nodded and said, this way is really good. Let's do it in our company later, so that everyone doesn't have to order takeout every day. Really? Sun Yumeng's eyes lit up. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, I have this idea now. Everyone works so hard, so we should also provide everyone with corresponding benefits. However, there is no place to cook in our company. We will study how to solve this problem later. At this time, the men who had just watched the excitement came in and greeted the people in the restaurant. Shai and Fei did not appear. Those men obviously saw Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng, but they did not look at them anymore, as if they had never seen them before. Most of the people here are very familiar, but Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng are completely unknown, and no one sits at the same table with them. Sun Yumeng watched those people eating and laughing, and listened to them talking about various big projects. She said with some concern, Boss Su, I see they are all very familiar with each other. If we offend them this time, will it affect the company? Su Weifeng said lightly, it's okay. If anyone wants to trouble us, just let them come. This way we can make money faster. Sun Yumeng didn't understand what Su Weifeng meant. She didn't know about the Qiao family and the Shu family asking Su Weifeng to extort money. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, let's eat. These things are not for you to worry about. It's not because of me. Sun Yumeng pouted. There are many seats in the restaurant. Everyone picked a table that they were more familiar with. Su Weifeng and his team were the only two people from beginning to end. This was quite quiet. All people from other companies who finally had the opportunity to contact so many film and television companies must get to know everyone and then find business opportunities, but Su Weifeng was too lazy to do so. Although it seemed deserted, it also aroused some people's curiosity. After all, Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng seemed very special, and no one knew them, so some people were still asking privately which company they were from. However, after asking for a while, they still couldn't find out. Even those people who had seen Su Weifeng at this time completely pretended that they had never seen him before. When asked, they also pretended not to know. Chapter 263 Friends. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Su Weifeng and his team came to a classroom. There were 20 companies participating in this activity this time, with 2 people from each company, exactly 40 people. In terms of the ratio of men to women, there were still more men, and there were about 13 or 14 women. In terms of age, most of them were 30 or 40 years old. After all, those who participated in this study were all people with high positions in the company. Those in the big film and television companies, those in high positions, were generally over 30 years old. There were young people, but there were very few men. There were only a few people like Su Weifeng who were around 25 years old. But the women were generally not old, and they all looked good, so there were many unspeakable things. Today was the first day of a meeting to set up a new class. Several leaders came and made a simple opening ceremony. Then the leaders left, and then everyone introduced themselves. Listening to the introductions of the general manager, director, project leader, etc. of a big film and television company, Sun Yumeng couldn't help but secretly gasp. The gap in strength was too big, and the pressure of studying here was also very high. However, seeing Su Weifeng's calm and composed appearance, Sun Yumeng's chest also straightened up. She couldn't lose Su Weifeng's face. After each person who stood up to introduce himself, everyone applauded enthusiastically. But when Su Weifeng stood up and introduced himself, the applause was sparse. Obviously, a small video company really couldn't attract other people's attention. The few who applauded were the men who met in the yard yesterday. After Sun Yumeng's turn to introduce herself, she still received a lot of applause. Although she was just an employee of a small company, Sun Yumeng's youthful and beautiful face, coupled with a bit of cute temperament, was indeed easy to attract men's favor. This made Sun Yumeng a little embarrassed. After sitting down, she stuck out her tongue at Su Weifeng apologetically. Su Weifeng just smiled and naturally didn't care about such a small thing. After the opening ceremony, the morning activities ended. Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng were packing up and preparing to leave when Su Weifeng was patted on the shoulder. The 2 men were both young men in their mid-20s. The guy who patted Su Weifeng on the shoulder said with a smile, "Brother, let's make friends." Su Weifeng stood up, squinted his eyes, and said, "Make friends? Are you sure?" The guy looked at Su Weifeng again, and his smile became even wider. He said, "Of course I'm sure. I think you're very interesting, so I want to make friends with you." Su Weifeng asked again, "How do you see that I'm interesting? You're asking me this now, so it's interesting." Su Weifeng laughed, stretched out his hand, and said, "Su Weifeng." The 2 men had no hostility. They were just the kind of people who were very familiar with each other. The most important thing was that they didn't have any arrogance, because they were from a small company, so Su Weifeng didn't mind trying to make friends with them. "Zheng Yulong, this is my buddy Zhao Mingjiang." Zheng Yulong shook hands with Su Weifeng and introduced another man next to him. Su Weifeng shook hands with the 2 men respectively and then wanted to introduce Sun Yumeng. Zheng Yulong said with a smile, "Sun Yumeng, we all remember it. We can't forget such a cute girl." Sun Yumeng's face turned red, and she said hello. Zheng Yulong bumped Su Weifeng with his shoulder, blinked his eyes, and said with an ambiguous look on his face, "Brother, you are still good at playing. Why didn't I think of bringing a girl to study?" Zhao Mingjiang's expression was the same as Zheng Yulong's, also in an ambiguous and obscene way. Sun Yumeng immediately understood what the 2 guys meant, and her face turned red. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes and said, "You 2 have impure thoughts. This is my colleague and the most outstanding screenwriter in my company. I didn't bring her here to have fun." Zheng Yulong laughed and put his arm around Su Weifeng's shoulders and said, I understand. You don't have to explain. We are all men." Zhao Mingjiang said with a smile, "Come on, let's go have a drink." Su Weifeng hesitated and said, "Let's forget about it at noon. We still have classes in the afternoon." Zheng Yulong said, "That's true. We are skipping classes on the first day of study. That would be too disrespectful to the teachers. Let's go out and have fun tonight." Su Weifeng smiled and nodded and said, "Okay, let's go out for a couple of drinks tonight." The 4 were about to leave when a man and a woman came towards them. The man was about 30 years old and looked quite dignified, but when he came closer, a look of disdain appeared on his face. He said directly to Zheng Yulong, "Zheng Yulong, you are really going backwards. There are so many important people in the film and television companies, but you don't contact them. Instead, you find someone from a small video company to make friends. I feel sorry for you on behalf of your family. Zheng Yulong rolled his eyes and said, who I make friends with is my business. Do I need you, young Master Wu, to say anything? The young Master Wu snorted and said, I really don't want to control you, but you, Zheng Yulong, have been competing with me, and I enjoy defeating you. If you degenerate, I will find it very boring. Defeat me? Ha, you are so shameless. Even if I go out to have fun every day, you are no match for me. Go wherever you are cool. Don't act big in front of me. Also, if you look down on my friends in front of me again, don't blame me for turning against you. Slander? You're from a small video company. Are you qualified to be slandered by me? Young Master Wu looked at Su Weifeng with disdain, then turned and walked away. What a bastard. Why are you pretending? Zheng Yulong spat, then said to Su Weifeng apologetically, because of our relationship, you are despised by others. Sorry. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, it's okay, I can't stop others from seeing me. Zhao Mingyang gave Su Weifeng a thumbs up and said, brother, you are really broad-minded. I can't stand this. If I have the chance, I must punish Wu Yuanfang, the bastard, who is arrogant in front of us every day. It makes me angry. Zheng Yulong also nodded repeatedly and said, just because of your mentality of not being surprised by praise or criticism, you are also a person who can do big things. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264 Diligent Sun Yumeng. At lunch, the four of them sat at the same table. Su Weifeng also got to know these two guys better. Zheng Yulong and Zhao Mingyang's families jointly founded a film and television company with a scale of about 1 billion yuan. This kind of company is not big, nor is it small. It is probably ranked in the top 10 in the entire province. After graduating from college, Zheng Yulong and Zhao Mingyang both went to the film and television company to gain experience. Although the two did not say too much in detail, Su Weifeng also knew that the two were from big families. This was not only seen from the strength of their companies, but also from their conversation and knowledge. However, these two guys were more interested in women. While joking, they always talked about Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng. Sun Yumeng's face never faded during the meal, and her head was almost lowered to the plate. After the meal, everyone went back to their rooms to rest. Sun Yumeng came to Su Weifeng's room. Su Weifeng let Sun Yumeng in, and said with a smile, those two guys are outspoken, just pretend you didn't hear them. Sun Yumeng's face turned red again, and she said, it's okay, let them say whatever they want, I don't mind. Su Weifeng nodded and said, well, that's good. Why don't you go back to take a nap, and come to my place? Sun Yumeng glanced at them, and immediately went over to make the bed, saying, I just came to see if I can do something for you, like washing clothes, tidying up the room or something. No need, doesn't someone come to clean up here every day? Sun Yumeng said, you have to wash the clothes yourself. You wore these clothes yesterday. Take them off, and I will wash them for you, otherwise they will smell like sweat. Su Weifeng smiled and said, thank you for your kindness, I can wash them myself. Sun Yumeng smiled playfully and said, how can you men wash clothes cleanly? Let me do it. The leader brought me out to broaden my horizons. I have to serve the leader well, otherwise I will look like a fool. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile and said, you little girl, you have learned to be naughty now. Okay, if I don't let you do something, it will seem that I, as a leader, am not majestic enough. Sun Yumeng nodded seriously and said, yes, I'm willing to serve the leader. Su Weifeng took off his coat and Sun Yumeng started washing in the bathroom. This made Su Weifeng feel embarrassed to lie on the bed and act like a boss, so he came to the bathroom door and chatted with Sun Yumeng. I was really scared when I heard the names of those big film and television companies today. These were all things I could only hear before, and I never thought about taking classes with the important people in them. I feel so honored now. Sun Yumeng rubbed her clothes with both hands, and her little face was full of excitement. Su Weifeng leaned against the door frame and said, no matter what company they are from, they are also people. At least they are our classmates now, and they are not higher than us. Sun Yumeng turned to Su Weifeng and showed a cute smile, saying, what Zheng Yulang said is very right. President Su, you are so broad-minded. No matter what kind of people you meet, you can remain calm. I'm just a little girl and can't reach your level. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, don't belittle yourself. Sun Yumeng stuck out her tongue and said, I know that I can't lose face for President Su when I follow him. If they are all like Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang, I still feel okay. If they are a little fierce, I will be afraid. Su Weifeng thought about it, and it was true. Such a mentality is indeed not something that ordinary people can have. Standing by and watching Sun Yumeng wash clothes, he suddenly became a little fascinated. Boss Su, what's wrong? Sun Yumeng didn't hear Su Weifeng's voice. She turned her head and met Su Weifeng's gaze. She seemed to feel that Su Weifeng's gaze was different from usual. The little girl was a little nervous. Su Weifeng looked away a little embarrassedly and said, Yumeng, I feel that whoever can marry you will be very happy for the rest of his life. No way. Boss Su, you are really good at praising people. Sun Yumeng twisted her waist, feeling shy and happy. This was the first time Su Weifeng praised her like this outside of work. Su Weifeng said seriously, this is really what I feel. Look at you. You are capable at work, you can write scripts, and you work hard. Your income will definitely increase in the future. In life, you are good at washing clothes and cooking. You are simply a model of a good daughter-in-law who can both be a lady in the hall and a cook in the kitchen. Sun Yumeng's face turned even redder, and she said shyly, Boss Su, I really feel embarrassed when you praise me like this. Besides, what I do is what girls should do. Su Weifeng thought of Qiao Yushan and Len Zhuangsun, and couldn't help but chuckled, and said, that's not the case. Your boss Su can't do these things, and I have to serve him. Ah. Sun Yumeng was stunned for a moment, then immediately said, Boss Len's work is so busy. She is a strong woman. How can a strong woman do these rough work? But it is not suitable for Boss Su to do such work. Otherwise, if there is any washing and cooking work in the future, I will help you. Su Weifeng burst out laughing and said, why would I hire you? A nanny? A nanny is fine. Anyway, it was you, Mr. Su, who saved me in this life. If it weren't for you helping me, I would have become the bad guy's wife. I would have been in dire straits for the rest of my life. I'm happy to do anything for Mr. Su. Su Weifeng moved Sun Yumeng, and his tone was indescribably gentle. He said, you are such a good girl, but you are you. You should live your own life, and you shouldn't lose yourself because of gratitude. What you need to do now is to write the best script, which is much more valuable than helping us wash and rinse. Sun Yumeng muttered softly, oh, this rough work doesn't take much time. Sun Yumeng washed the clothes and cleaned the room and then left happily. Su Weifeng couldn't help shaking his head. This little girl was so happy to help him with work. She was really easy to satisfy. But this should also have an advantage. Such girls don't have high demands. So as long as they find a boyfriend who is similar to them, their future life will definitely be happy. Chapter 265. Cards. In the 2-hour class in the afternoon, a leader explained the current system and requirements. Therefore, everyone in the class was very serious. This involved the future development of the industry, and no one dared to be vague. Otherwise, if they accidentally touched the landmine, it might make a film with an investment of hundreds of millions or even hundreds of millions go down the drain. Cheyenne Fair also came out, and Su Weifeng had a look with her. The woman immediately looked away, and there was clearly a strong fear in her eyes. But in addition to that fear, Su Weifeng also read a kind of hatred. It seems that this woman must be brooding over this matter, and will not let it go. There must be some tricks. If these people don't come to provoke him, Su Weifeng is too lazy to bother with them. But if she still has to make trouble, Su Weifeng doesn't mind letting her deepen her impression and let her remember a profound lesson. After the class, Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng were dragged out by Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang. Not only them, but almost everyone in the company went out. The 4 people got into Zhao Mingyang's Porsche Cayman. Zheng Yulang, who was sitting in the passenger seat, asked, Mingyang, have you reserved a seat? Zhao Mingjiang casually said, do we need to reserve a seat if we go out to eat? Zheng Yulang said, if we go somewhere else, then of course we don't need to reserve a seat, but we are going to Huayutang. If we don't reserve a seat there, they won't find one for us if there is no seat available. Zhao Mingjiang said in surprise, is there such a thing? I've been there a few times and was always treated by others. I just remember that place was nice, but I didn't expect it to be so prestigious. Of course, this Huayutang is run by the ZHU family. Do you think it can be so prestigious? This is the first time we've invited Brother Su and Sister Yumeng to dinner. It would be embarrassing if there were no seats. I'll call to make a reservation now. As he spoke, Zheng Yulang made a phone call, and things went smoothly. The other side said there were seats available and reserved them for them. After hanging up the phone, Zheng Yulang turned around and said to Su Weifeng and Sun Yumeng with a smile, the place I'm taking you to today is definitely the best restaurant in our province. The ingredients there are all top notch, and the chef is a 5-star chef. Is it opened by the ZHU family? Su Weifeng asked casually. Yes, Brother Su, you also know the ZHU family? Zheng Yulang asked in surprise. Su Weifeng said, I've heard a little about it. It seems that it is a very powerful big family in the province. Then I really underestimated Brother Su. I thought you didn't know about big families. It seems that Brother Su is also knowledgeable. When Zheng Yulang talked about the ZHU family with Zhao Mingjiang just now, he thought that Su Weifeng would not understand such things, and he didn't want to explain it. Otherwise it would seem that he was showing off in front of Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng smiled and said, I just heard a little bit. Those are all hearsay. Of course, it is not as clear as what you people in the big families say. Zhao Mingjiang laughed and said, big families are just like that. They have accumulated wealth for a long time and have more funds and connections. Zheng Yulang said, the ZHU family is different. They are developing better and stronger. Now many industries in the provincial capital are almost all involved by the ZHU family. Take Huayutang for example. Although it is just a restaurant, it represents a kind of identity and face here. Not everyone who wants to eat can eat there. You have to have a certain identity and status to eat there, otherwise they will not receive you. Sun Yumeng was also familiar with the two of them. At this time, she said in surprise, isn't a restaurant a place for people to eat? As long as you have money, how can you not receive them? Zhao Mingjiang said, Sister Yumeng, you don't know this. Huayutang is so popular. If it receives all guests, it will not reflect the level of his restaurant. Zheng Yulang nodded repeatedly and said, yes, the less casual the reception of guests, the more people want to eat there and even feel proud to eat there. The ZHU family's methods are really clever. Sun Yumeng blinked and said, then we go to eat this time. Wouldn't it be very face-saving? Zheng Yulang laughed and said, this is the first time I take Brother Su and Sister Yumeng out, especially such a good sister like Yumeng. If we don't talk about face, how can we make friends with you? Sun Yumeng immediately said gratefully, then I really have to thank Brother Zheng and Brother Zhao for bringing us to broaden our horizons. After chatting for a while, except for Su Weifeng's 2 words at the beginning, he didn't speak at all, and his expression was quite calm, and he was not surprised at all, because of hearing about the ZHU family. This made Zheng Yulang secretly surprised. The affairs of a big family, generally outsiders, would be very curious, and they talked so much about the ZHU family, even a big boss would show some performance at this time. But to Su Weifeng, it was as if he was listening to something very ordinary. Who is this Su Weifeng? Zheng Yulang was murmuring in his heart, and he also had a strong curiosity. Huayutang is said to be a hotel, but it is more like a private garden. In addition to the 3-story building on the outside with some scattered tables and private rooms, the most high-end ones are the single-family villas in the garden. There are more than 22-story single-family villas here. Each one does not look big, but this one only entertains 1 table of guests, which shows the luxury and grade. As soon as I arrived at the gate, I saw 4 tall beauties wearing cheongsams on each side, greeting several people. Each of them is model level in appearance and figure, but now they are here as reception ladies. This alone is enough to show how high the grade of this hotel is. Zheng Yulang booked a single family villa in the garden. After arriving at the front desk, Zheng Yulang reported his mobile phone number. After the pretty girl at the front desk checked the room, she said in a panic, "Mr. Zheng, I'm so sorry, we made a mistake. This room has been booked." Zheng Yulang frowned and said, "What? It's booked? I just called, and you said there was no problem. How come it's booked?" The girl at the front desk said apologetically, "Mr. Zheng, I'm so sorry. When you were booking the room just now, another group of guests came to book a room. As a result, we didn't communicate well, and booked the same room twice. This was our mistake." Although Zheng Yulang was a little annoyed, he didn't dare to be presumptuous on the ZHU family's territory, and said, "Oh my god, how could this happen? Then change it for us now." The girl at the front desk said helplessly, "I'm so sorry, there are no rooms left. You should go to the Sante to eat." Haha. A man's voice suddenly came from behind. When Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang heard this voice, their faces suddenly became extremely ugly. Chapter 266 Luxury. The person who spoke was the eldest son of the Wu family whom I met at noon today. His name was Wu Kuanaiao. Along with him, there were 6 or 7 other people, both male and female, all classmates, but none of them were familiar. Zheng Yulang snorted and said, "There are no private rooms here, and neither do you." Wu Kuanaiao curled his lips in disdain and said, "I'm sorry, we have already booked a room. Since we are all eating at Huarai Hall, how can we go to the scattered tables like you guys?" Zheng Yulang was speechless for a moment, and glared at Wu Kuanaiao fiercely. At this time, he was too lazy to argue with him. He was ready to wait until they were gone before negotiating with the staff. Wu Kuanaiao reported his mobile phone number and name to the front desk, and the girl at the front desk immediately said, "The room in Heianfang." Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang's faces became even uglier. The name of this room was exactly what they had just booked. "Did we book a room?" Wu Kuanaiao turned his head and looked at Zheng Yulang with a smile. Zheng Yulang immediately said angrily, "Did you deliberately snatch it from us?" Wu Kuanaiao laughed and said, "Yes, I did snatch it from you. If you have the ability, take it back." Zheng Yulang's face turned pale, and he slapped the front desk and shouted at the staff inside, "What do you mean by this?" The girl at the front desk looked at Wu Kuanaiao unkindly and hurriedly said to Zheng Yulang, "Sir, as long as it meets the conditions of our Huarai Hall's distinguished guests, we treat everyone equally. This is indeed our mistake, and we are not targeting you." Although this is just a little girl at the front desk, she also represents the ZHU family. Wu Kuanaiao was exposed, and he could only smile bitterly. This made it difficult for Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang to get angry again. Wu Kuanaiao had booked a room, and said to Zheng Yulang again, "Zheng Yulang, Zhao Mingyang, we are all classmates. You have no place to eat, so it's okay for me to take you with you. But you brought these 2 country bumpkins to eat with them, which would only lower my status, so I can't take you with me." Wu Kuanaiao led those people over with laughter. Su Weifeng frowned slightly, feeling that Wu Kuanaiao was really annoying. He wanted to belittle Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang, but he always brought him with him, which was a bit cheap. Zheng Yulang suppressed the urge to run away, turned around and looked at the girl at the front desk, and said, "What should we do now?" The girl said helplessly, "Mr. Zheng, how about this? Please condescend to the open tables in front, and all the consumption will be free of charge." Zheng Yulang's face darkened, and he said, "Let us go to the open tables. We can't afford to lose face. For people of ordinary status, going to the open tables of Huarai Hall is already quite respectable, but for Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang, going there is a shameful thing, so naturally they can't do it. They are not people who lack money. Even if a meal costs tens of thousands, they won't feel a bit if the bill is free." The girl at the front desk first apologized to Zheng Xianlong, then pressed the earphones in her ears with her fingers and said, okay, I know, I understand." After that, the girl's face became a little strange, and then she looked at Su Weifeng and said in an extremely respectful tone, "Excuse me, are you Mr. Su Weifeng?" Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang were stunned. What was going on? Why did the girl at the front desk suddenly ask this? How did she know Su Weifeng's name? "Oh, I am." Su Weifeng nodded, and his eyes swept around. Sure enough, he saw a familiar figure in a window on the 2nd floor. It was ZHU Xiaoxun, the eldest daughter of the ZHU family. Okay, I'll ask the service staff," to take the guests to Qiao Hall. What? Qiao Hall? Zheng Yulan and Zhao Mingyang's eyes widened immediately, and their eyeballs almost popped out. Qiao Hall for us? Are you sure? Zheng Yulan stuttered a little. Yes. The girl at the front desk nodded very affirmatively. How is this possible? Zheng Yulan and Zhao Mingyang said in unison, and then turned their eyes to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng shrugged his shoulders and said, now that we have a room, let's go have dinner. You don't want to treat me, do you? Please, of course. Zheng Yulan was also a smart man. He immediately patted his chest and stopped asking other questions. Walking into the yard, Sun Yumeng's eyes were not enough. Yesterday he thought the scenery at the training center was nice, but now when he saw this place, he suddenly felt that the scenery at the training center was not worth mentioning at all. The waiter who brought a few people had a good look. Seeing Sun Yumeng's expression, he immediately began to explain the scenery of the park. We invited dozens of top domestic garden designers to design the landscape here, and referred to the advantages of many famous landscapes in China and abroad before we finalized the plan. Every flower, grass, tree, and stone here are extremely exquisite. For example, every stone on the cobblestone path under our feet was collected from a stream in Qianshan Mountain. For example, this camellia is a top grade 9th grade jade belt. This tea tree alone is worth hundreds of thousands. Paradise on earth. Such a word popped up in Sun Yumeng's mind. Especially listening to the waiter's explanation, she saw this top-level luxury. Everything here was something she had never even thought of before. Zheng Yulan and Zhao Mingyang had been here more than once, but they had never heard the explanation before, so they were also a little dumbfounded. Zhao Mingyang was shocked and said, no wonder the cost here is so high. I just realized that the price is quite fair, even cheap. Zheng Yulan nodded and said, only the ZHU family can do this. It's not just a matter of money, but also involves various aspects, especially cultural literacy, which we can't catch up with. After a while, the four people came to a small villa at the innermost part of the yard. The villa didn't seem to be that special from the outside, but when they pushed the door in, they were stunned. There was nothing luxurious in this room, and it even looked a little old. The things inside were all antique. A faint fragrance lingered in the house, and people felt relaxed and happy as soon as they came in. Oh my god, are the antiques here real? Zheng Yulan asked first. The waiter smiled proudly and said, yes, every piece of furnishings here, including the chairs and coffee tables, are antiques, and they are all personally appraised by several famous antique connoisseurs. Chapter 267. Jaw dropped. Then, how much does this cost? Sun Yumeng asked a question that sounded the most vulgar, but it was also the question that Zheng Yulan and Zhao Mingyang wanted to ask, but didn't dare to ask. The waiter smiled and said, the things in this villa were counted 3 years ago, and the total value is more than 500 million. 500 million. Sun Yumeng screamed. This is just a small villa, but it is worth 500 million. Oh, and it's just the things inside. Like this set of sandalwood chairs, they have a history of more than 200 years. Now such sandalwood has long been extinct. It is impossible to make such sandalwood chairs again. The value is millions. Can we still sit on it? Sun Yumeng's mouth twitched. Of course. The waiter said very confidently, although there are antiques in here, those who can come here are the most distinguished guests. The most distinguished guests can naturally match everything in here. Sun Yumeng stuck out her tongue and said, I dare not sit on it. If I break it, I can't afford the compensation, even if I sell myself. The waiter said, my beautiful lady, it's okay. These chairs are still very strong, and will not be damaged normally. Sun Yumeng smiled embarrassedly, and then asked cautiously, then can I ask how much it costs to eat here? The waiter pursed his lips and smiled, and said, our room is free. Sun Yumeng was confused. Zheng Yulan then said, this room is the top-notch one in Huai Hall. It does not receive outsiders at all. Only guests who can eat here are specially invited by the ZHU family. Without the invitation of the ZHU family, no matter how much money you spend, you cannot come in. Sun Yumeng suddenly clapped her hands excitedly and said, ah, I know, it's Sister ZHU Xiaoxun. Sister Yumeng, you still remember me? ZHU Xiaoxuan's voice came from the door. Several people hurriedly looked at the door. Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingguang rushed forward and said respectfully, "Hello, Miss ZHU." Although their two families are also considered big families, the size of the ZHU family is not comparable to this. They are also the children who are valued in the family, but in front of ZHU Xiaoxuan, they can only be polite. ZHU Xiaoxuan smiled slightly and said, "Don't be so polite." Then she walked towards Sun Yumeng and said with a smile, "Xiao Yumeng, you are getting cuter and more beautiful." Sun Yumeng blushed and said excitedly, "Sister ZHU Xiaoxuan, I was wondering why we are treated like this. It turns out it's you." ZHU Xiaoxuan chuckled and said, "It's me. You came to the province without even saying hello to me. If I hadn't happened to be here today, I wouldn't have known you were here." Sun Yumeng stuck out her tongue and said, "We are just here to study. Sorry to bother you." ZHU Xiaoxuan smiled and finally looked at Su Weifeng and said, "Brother Su, you don't blame me for being rude, do you?" Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "You give us so much face and make us so proud. How can I blame you? I haven't thanked you for my help last time. It's just a small thing, not worth mentioning. Do you have time this time? My grandfather is always talking about you. Haha, if I don't go see the old man, it would be too rude. I'll go and see him tomorrow night." Okay, I'll pick you up." ZHU Xiaoxuan's face suddenly lit up. Then he immediately said, "Then I won't disturb you guys for dinner. See you tomorrow. I'll go." Damn it. As soon as ZHU Xiaoxuan left, Zhao Mingguang and Zheng Yulang both cursed, and then turned their eyes to Su Weifeng. Their eyes were filled with excitement and depression. Zheng Yulang smiled bitterly and said, "Su Weifeng, you are kidding us." Su Weifeng shrugged and said, "No, you misunderstood. I just know ZHU Xiaoxuan and her grandfather." Zhao Mingguang grinned and said, "Know them? Are you kidding? Who is ZHU Xiaoxuan? She is the most outstanding young member of the ZHU family. Although she is a girl, her status in the ZHU family is definitely the highest among her peers. The attitude she showed when talking to you just now, and the fact that she took the initiative to invite you to this room, is enough to show your status in the eyes of the ZHU family." Su Weifeng shook his head and said, "It was just by chance that I saved the life of the old man of the ZHU family, so I was treated like this. But to say that I have any real relationship with the ZHU family, that's not the case." Life-saving grace? Zhao Mingguang and Zheng Yulang looked at Su Weifeng suspiciously. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Of course, you don't think I'm a member of the ZHU family, right? If I really have that identity, it's impossible that no one from a big family like yours would know me, right?" This convinced Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingguang. Zheng Yulang said, "Then this life-saving grace is also extraordinary. Seeing ZHU Xiaoxuan's attitude towards you, if you have anything to ask the ZHU family in the future, the ZHU family will definitely support you. I dare say that few people from other big families have such face." Zhao Mingguang also said, "Not bad, not bad. Just for this life-saving grace, that's enough. If anyone is blind enough to provoke you, it will be quite an offense to the ZHU family. Ha, we made friends with you without knowing about your affairs. It's not intentional." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "You two young masters from big families can look up to me. That's already my face. This is me trying to climb up to you." Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingguang were indeed frightened by ZHU Xiaoxuan's attitude just now, but now they are relaxed and started to talk and laugh. When you come here to eat, you don't have to order dishes at all. Which room you go to will be served with the corresponding dishes. Soon, several dishes were placed on the table. Zheng Yulang said, "Let's sit down and drink." Sun Yumeng looked at the chair and said hesitantly, "We really sit down?" Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Of course, you can eat standing here." Sun Yumeng then sat down on the chair carefully, as if she was afraid that the chair would fall apart. "Are these bowls and plates also antiques?" Zheng Yulang muttered subconsciously as he picked up the small bowl in front of him. Behind each person, there was a beautiful waitress standing. The girl behind Zheng Yulang immediately said, "These bowls and plates are not too old. They are all from the Qing dynasty, but they are not from the official kiln, but the finest from the folk kiln." Sun Yumeng was about to pick up the bowl, but she was so scared that she quickly took her hand back. Chapter 268 Too lazy to care. Su Weifeng glared at Zheng Yulang helplessly and then said to Sun Yumeng, "Yumeng, don't be so nervous. Can you break a bowl when you eat normally?" Sun Yumeng smiled bitterly and said, "That's not possible, but I'm panicking." Patting Sun Yumeng on the shoulder, Su Weifeng said, "Anyway, these are all from ZHU Xiaoxuan's family. If they are broken, they are hers. She won't ask you to pay for it." Sun Yumeng grinned and tried to relax herself, but she was still scared when she saw these tableaux. Eating here is really too stressful. Su Weifeng knew that Sun Yumeng couldn't be bold just because she said so he could only let her do it. The wine has been poured, and Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang both picked up their glasses. Zheng Yulang said, "Su Weifeng, we two brothers toast to you. It is because of you that we have the opportunity to come here to eat. Otherwise, I really don't know if we will have the opportunity to come to this room to eat in this life." Zhao Mingyang immediately followed up and said, "Yes, this is enough for us to brag about for a lifetime. Come on, let's have a drink." The atmosphere became more harmonious after drinking the wine. Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang still had obvious differences in their attitudes towards Su Weifeng when they first met. Although the two did not act arrogantly in front of Su Weifeng, they had a sense of control over everything. At least they had a sense of condescending to make friends, and they could not help but feel a little superior. But now they are completely equal to Su Weifeng. After all, they are also children of a big family. Su Weifeng has a relationship with the ZHU family, but he is not a member of the ZHU family after all. It is most appropriate for everyone to be equal. They had just started eating here, and the music sounded, and then a curtain next to it was pulled open, and it turned out to be a stage. The performance was not singing and dancing, but traditional opera. For young people, opera is almost never listened to, and they only listen to popular music. But in this environment, if you listen to popular music, it will definitely ruin the atmosphere. On the contrary, this kind of opera sounds more comfortable. Even though a few people didn't understand it very well, they were listening very attentively at this time, and their sentiments seemed to have been improved all of a sudden. The meal was not lively, and there was no scene of not returning the toast. Everyone just ate quietly, occasionally raised their glasses to signal each other, and then listened to the songs and talked softly. After the meal, the waiter took a few people to the tea room. While tasting the best tea, they could also watch the performance on the stage from upstairs, which was even more comfortable. After more than 2 hours, the show ended, and the four people left the room contentedly. Zheng Yulang shook his head and said, "What is a high standard? What is a good appearance? I found that the ones I saw before were really rubbish." Zhao Mingyang also nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, I found that I was just a country bumpkin before." Su Weifeng was also well informed, but he was also shocked by this kind of appearance today. He had seen top-level luxury, but this kind of low-key luxury with cultural heritage was also the first time he enjoyed it. This made him look at the ZHU family with a new eye. If it weren't for the sufficient cultural heritage, the ZHU family wouldn't have come up with such a thing. Of course, the one who felt the most was Sun Yumeng. Even if the little girl came out, she still looked silly and cute at this time. If Su Weifeng hadn't held her hand, she didn't know where to go. She was completely immersed in it. When they walked to the middle of the yard, they happened to meet Wu Kuan'Yao and his group again. Wu Kuan'Yao was immediately amused when he saw the few people and said, "Ha, Zheng Yulang, Zhao Mingyang, you have actually waited until now? Waiting? What for?" Zheng Yulang was in a good mood at this time, and he was no longer so annoyed when he saw Wu Kuan'Yao. Wu Kuan'Yao chuckled and said, "Haven't you been waiting for receipt? It just so happens that we have finished eating, and you can finally go." Zheng Yulang's eyes showed a look like he was looking at an idiot, and said, "We have finished eating." Finished eating? Wu Kuan'Yao was stunned for a moment, then curled his lips and said disdainfully, "I say, Zheng Yulang, you are too pretentious. Everyone knows that the seats in Huaraiu Hall are full, so it is impossible for you to make room. Did you finish eating at the scattered tables and then come here for a stroll?" Without waiting for Zheng Yulang and others to speak, Wu Kuanao immediately said self-righteously, "Oh, no, you should have brought these two country bumpkins here to broaden your horizons." Haha. Anger suddenly surged on the faces of Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang. Before the meal, Wu Kuanao said that Su Weifeng was a country bumpkin, and they didn't feel particularly strongly about it, but now that they knew about Su Weifeng's relationship with the ZHU family, they were particularly annoyed when he said that again. Just as they were about to get angry, Su Weifeng said indifferently, "Let's go, there's no need to bother with such people." Humph. Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang both snorted, and then left with Su Weifeng. Wu Kuanao snorted disdainfully and said, "That's all you are. You don't even have the courage to confront me." A person next to him said in confusion, "Mr. Wu, why did I feel something was wrong just now?" "What's wrong?" Wu Kuanao asked in confusion. Just now, Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang were about to lose their temper, but after that country bumpkin said something, the two of them followed him. Why do I have a feeling that these two guys are centered around that kid? Wu Kuanao said disdainfully, "PFFT, those two guys are idiots. They like to make friends with people who have no abilities and pretend to be humble, but all the people they make friends with are useless." Another person also said, "Yeah, he is just a small company boss in Yangcheng. With that little strength, we can destroy his company with just a snap of our fingers. What's there to worry about?" Su Weifeng and the others walked out of Huai Hall. Sitting in the car, Zhao Mingyang said angrily, "Brother Su, we should have let them know that we had dinner in Yangxiu just now, and see if they dare to be arrogant in front of us." Zheng Yulang also said a little depressed, "Yeah, if he knew, he would be scared to death. Thinking of his scared look, I would feel so happy. What a pity." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "What's the point? This is not based on our own strength. In the end, we have to face reality. Even if they are better than you in the future, they may even use this matter to talk about it, and they will have the opportunity to belittle you." Chapter 269 Misunderstanding. Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang looked at Su Weifeng, and then both gave him a thumbs up. Zheng Yulang said, "We will call you Brother Su from now on. I feel that we are still too childish in front of you." Originally, Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang wanted to take them to some entertainment venues. But today, they were influenced by this high-end culture. They felt that going to such a place with bright lights and wine would ruin the atmosphere and feel too vulgar. So everyone went back to the training center directly. Sun Yumeng followed Su Weifeng into Su Weifeng's room without noticing the ambiguous eyes of Zhao Mingyang and Zheng Yulang. Su Weifeng was too lazy to explain to them. They could think whatever they wanted. After closing the door, Sun Yumeng came in and sat directly on the bed. This surprised Su Weifeng a little. Didn't this little girl want to stay with him today? But looking at Sun Yumeng's dazed look, Su Weifeng soon realized that she was shocked by the scene today and had not recovered yet. "Hey." Su Weifeng stretched out his hand and waved it in front of Sun Yumeng's eyes, but the little girl was still in a daze, motionless. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile, patted her shoulder and said, "Wake up." Sun Yumeng's body shook, and her eyes focused at this time. She looked at Su Weifeng in a daze, and her eyes finally turned a few times, then excitedly grabbed Su Weifeng's hand, put it on her face, and said, "Mr. Su, pinch me quickly." "What for?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "See if I'm dreaming." Sun Yumeng said seriously, "Yes, I feel like I'm dreaming all the time. Pinch me quickly." Su Weifeng felt funny and pinched her face lightly with his fingers. "It doesn't hurt. It turns out that I'm really dreaming. Then I'll go back to sleep," Sun Yumeng said, and fell on her back on the bed. Su Weifeng couldn't help but laugh out loud, and just as he was about to speak, his cell phone rang. It was a video sent by Lin Zhuangsun. Su Weifeng answered the call directly, and with a smile on his face, he said, "Zhuangsun. Hey, what are you doing?" Lin Zhuangsun shouted angrily. As soon as the video was connected, she saw Sun Yumeng on the bed. "Nothing." "Ah." Su Weifeng subconsciously turned his head to look at Sun Yumeng, and then his face turned black. It was almost 10 o'clock in the evening, and he and Sun Yumeng were in the same room, and Sun Yumeng was still lying on the bed. It would be strange if people didn't think that way. Lin Zhuangsun cursed angrily. "Su Weifeng, you bastard, you actually attacked Sun Yumeng. Are you still a human being?" Su Weifeng hurriedly said, "It's not like that. If something happened between Yu Meng and me, I would be stupid to answer your video call. Isn't this looking for death? Yu Meng, get up. Don't be stupid." Sun Yu Meng finally came to her senses at this time and realized the seriousness of the problem. She jumped up, her face flushed with anxiety, and stammered, "Mr. Lin, no, I really don't want to sleep here." Seeing that Sun Yu Meng couldn't explain the point, Su Weifeng said with a smile, "I went out to a high-end place for dinner with 2 friends today and scared this little girl. She is still confused now." Lin Zhuangxuan was just instinctively annoyed just now, but Su Weifeng's explanation directly hit the point. No matter how bold this guy is, he can't video chat with her when he is cheating. Lin Zhuangxuan was also curious and asked, "Where did you go to eat that made you Meng like this?" Seeing that Lin Zhuangxuan didn't seem to be annoyed, Sun Yu Meng sorted out her thoughts a little and told her what she had seen during the meal today. The more Zhao said, the more excited he was. He chatted with Lin Zhuangxuan for more than 10 minutes. Lin Zhuangxuan was also dumbfounded and said, "This is too amazing. I regret it. If I had known there was such a good place, I would have gone there too." Sun Yu Meng said excitedly, "That's Sister Zhu Zhuangxuan's house. You and President Su will definitely be able to go there next time you come together." Lin Zhuangxuan nodded and said, "Yeah, okay, then I'll talk to Weifeng." "Oh, sorry, I'm too excited and disturbed you. President Su, give it to you quickly. I'm going to go back to sleep first." Sun Yu Meng handed the phone to Su Weifeng and ran away. Zhuangxuan. Su Weifeng took the phone and fell directly on the bed. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said sourly, "Huh, is it enjoyable to have a cute and soft girl to accompany you?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "What's the enjoyment? Don't insult me. You know my situation. If I really have such an idea, I would have attacked you and Qiao Yushan long ago. Bah. Big hooligan." Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng, but there was a smile in the corners of her eyes and eyebrows. Lin Zhuangxuan actually had nothing to do, just chatting with Su Weifeng. The two of them talked about this and that, and unknowingly, another half an hour had passed. No one felt impatient, and it seemed that there was still a lot to say. However, Su Weifeng stopped the topic and said, "Okay, it's getting late. Go to bed early. Okay, you are not allowed to run out and hang out, and you are not allowed to bring other girls to your room. Got it?" After hanging up the video, Su Weifeng shook his head. When chatting with Lin Zhuangxuan, he really felt like chatting with his girlfriend, but this was impossible. The next day, during class time, nothing special happened. After class at around 4 o'clock, Su Weifeng sent a message to Zhu Zhuangxuan, asking her to pick him up at 5 o'clock. At almost 5 o'clock, Su Weifeng came to the gate of the training center alone. He was not used to putting on airs, and had to wait for someone to call before going out. It was also a basic courtesy to wait for the other party a little earlier. "What's the matter? Did someone abandon you today and go out by yourself?" He unexpectedly met Wu Kuanai at the gate again. Wu Kuanai mocked Su Weifeng in a sarcastic way. Su Weifeng was too lazy to even pay attention to such a fly-like person. He just ignored him and walked straight ahead. "Ha, kid, why don't you follow me? You won't get any benefits if you follow Zhao Mingyang and Zheng Yulong, and you have offended me, which will only make your company difficult to move forward." Wu Kuanai was relentless and caught up with him. If Zheng Yulong and Zhao Mingyang wanted to make friends with someone, if he accepted him as his younger brother, wouldn't that be a blow to those two guys? "You?" Su Weifeng raised his lips and shook his head. Wu Kuanai read a kind of disdain on Su Weifeng's face, as if he, Wu Kuanai, was not qualified, and he was immediately furious. Chapter 270 The Old Man of the ZHU Family. Wu Kuanai rushed in front of Su Weifeng with a sullen face and said, "Boy, don't be shameless." Su Weifeng looked at Wu Kuanai and said lightly, "Your face is worthless." Wu Kuanai's face became even gloomier. "You, boy, do you think that you dare to ignore me just because Zhao Mingyang and Zheng Yulong support you?" Su Weifeng chuckled, shook his head, and said, "Yes, what do you think? You." Wu Kuanai was extremely angry. A small video company manager dared to talk to him like this. This was definitely an unbearable humiliation for him. With his arms raised, Wu Kuanai slapped Su Weifeng in the face in anger. But before his hand touched Su Weifeng's face, a big hand suddenly appeared in front of him, and then a crisp sound rang in his ears, and he was hit hard on the face. The huge force made him turn twice, and then he sat down with a plop. At this time, Wu Kuan'Yao did not feel any pain, because his face was numbed by the beating. He just felt stars in his eyes and the world was spinning. He struggled to stand up, but he was halfway up, and sat down on the ground with a plop. When he finally felt the burning pain on his face, Wu Kuan'Yao regained consciousness. He had lost the figure of Su Weifeng in front of him. He jumped up, and looked at the door. He saw Su Weifeng getting into a car and immediately shouted angrily, "Boy, stop right there. You dare to hit me. I'll kill you." But Su Weifeng had already slammed the car door shut, and the car drove away directly. "Mr. Wu, what's wrong with you?" A man came over, and looked at the angry Wu Kuan'Yao in confusion. "Damn, that bastard dared to hit me. I must kill him." "That guy dared to hit you?" The man also widened his eyes in surprise. Wu Kuan'Yao gnashed his teeth and said, "Did you see that car just now? I'm going to kill him tonight, even if I have to dig deep into the ground to find him." "Which car?" "I saw 2 cars here just now, and one of them seems to be from the ZHU family. I was wondering why the ZHU family's car is here." Wu Kuan'Yao heard the ZHU family and hurriedly said, "ZHU's? It just happened to be parked here, and I didn't see anyone coming out from here." "That's possible. It's another car, a small Jetta, but I didn't see the license plate clearly." "Jetta?" Wu Kuan'Yao was a little confused. Although he was furious just now, he clearly remembered that Su Weifeng definitely didn't get in a Jetta, but seemed to be a BMW or something. He wanted to ask the ZHU family what kind of car it was, but Wu Kuan'Yao didn't ask. He didn't believe that Su Weifeng had any relationship with the ZHU family. Su Weifeng was already sitting in ZHU Xiaoxuan's car at this time. This was a Bentley. He and ZHU Xiaoxuan were both sitting in the back seat, with the partition in the middle. The driver in the front wouldn't hear what the two were talking about in the back. ZHU Xiaoxuan said with a stern face, "Brother Su, the one just now seemed to be from the Wu family." He actually angered Brother Su. "I will ask the Wu family for an explanation later." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "No need, I will handle it myself." "That's right, then I won't bother you." ZHU Xiaoxuan also smiled. Su Weifeng has always had a good impression of ZHU Xiaoxuan. This girl is not only capable, but also very sensible. She will not pretend to be kind and make people feel annoyed. The two chatted casually for a while, and the car came to a small courtyard in the suburbs. This small courtyard is like a small courtyard of a farmer's house. There are vegetable gardens and fruit trees in the courtyard. Cars cannot enter the small courtyard and can only be parked at the door. There is only a 3-room tile house in the courtyard. The exterior decoration is also quite simple. It is impossible to imagine that this is where the old man of the ZHU family lives. ZHU Xianfeng, the old man of the ZHU family, wore a straw hat and held a hoe in his hand. He was weeding in the yard like an old farmer. Seeing Su Weifeng and ZHU Xiaoxuan coming in, ZHU Xianfeng straightened his back and said with a smile, "Mr. Su is really hard to invite." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "I'm afraid of disturbing the old man's quiet life." ZHU Xianfeng walked out with a smile, rubbed the mud on his shoes on the roadside, and said, "This is not quiet at all. It's just that young people don't like to talk to an old man like me, and I don't want to make myself bored, so I just enjoy myself here." ZHU Xiaoxuan said coquettishly, "Grandpa, I always want to accompany you, but you don't let me come. Haha, you young people don't like my kind of life. If you come to accompany me, it will be a torture for you. Come in and sit down." The old man's living room is also quite simple, with a small round table and a few wooden chairs. These things are obviously the most ordinary things, and they are not even painted. "Look at this table and chairs. I made them by myself. How about it?" The old man introduced them with great interest. "It looks like there's nothing wrong with it." Su Weifeng held the table and shook it gently, saying, "But the stability is a little poor. There must be a missing fixed part somewhere. I can feel it too, but I can't find where to add it. Can you help me check it?" Su Weifeng didn't hesitate to squat down and look under the table. The old man squatted down as well. Zhu Xiaoxuan couldn't help but be dumbfounded. She had thought about what her grandfather and Su Weifeng would talk about when they met, but she never thought that the two of them would start to study how to repair the table. Here, add a wooden pin here, and it should solve the problem. Then I'll try. The old man was really impatient and started working immediately. Su Weifeng lent a hand, and it was done in a short while. He stood up and shook the table, then put his hand on the table to add strength. The table was stable without any shaking. This made the old man very excited, and he said, "Great, great, Zhao Su, you are really a genius." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Grandpa, but I suggest you throw away this table." "Well, throw away all the furniture you made." "Throw away?" the old man asked doubtfully. "Yes, throw them all away." Su Weifeng nodded again. The old man showed reluctance on his face, but still nodded and said, "Okay, then I will arrange for someone to throw them away." At this time, a young man strode in from outside, frowned and said, "Throw away? Grandpa, these are the fine rosewood I bought for you at a high price. Why are you throwing them away? What nonsense are you talking about here?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271 Insights. Jianbin, stop talking nonsense. This is Su Weifeng, Grandpa's lifesaver. Zhu Xiaoxuan immediately widened his eyes. Zhu Jianbin is Zhu Xiaoxuan's younger brother, but not his biological brother, but his cousin. He is 23 years old this year, and is usually liked by the old man of the Zhu family. Not only is he tall and handsome, but he is also successful in his studies. Among the male descendants of this generation in the Zhu family, he is also a relatively outstanding figure. In this kind of large family that has accumulated for many years, cousins are basically arranged by age, just like their relatives. Zhu Jianbin said, "Third sister, we in the Zhu family will naturally be grateful to the lifesaver and will naturally give back, but that doesn't mean you can dictate everything in our family. Knowing that grandpa likes woodworking, I specially went to get the rosewood, but this person actually asked me to throw it away. To put it bluntly, this person really doesn't know what's good for him." Zhu Xianfeng smiled and said to Su Weifeng, "Children speak without restraint. Zhao Su, don't mind it, but I'm actually wondering if there's something wrong with this wood." Zhu Jianbin snorted and said, "Yes, if you don't give me an explanation, then this matter is not over." Su Weifeng didn't feel much disgusted with Zhu Jianbin's reaction, and said lightly, "Grandpa has been feeling a little chest tightness and difficulty breathing every night recently. Every morning when he wakes up, he must have phlegm in his throat, and the phlegm is dark yellow." The old man was immediately surprised and said, "Ah, indeed, you are right, but I had a checkup and the doctor couldn't find out what the disease is." Zhu Xiaoxuan also became nervous all of a sudden and asked, "Is this illness serious?" Zhu Jianbin had originally looked down on Su Weifeng, but now he also became nervous. The old man contributed the most to the current size of the Zhu family. Although the old man is not in charge of many things now, as long as he is alive, he is the backbone of the Zhu family. Other families will be very wary of him, so they are very nervous about anything that can affect the old man's health. Su Weifeng said, "It's okay in the short term, but it will be troublesome over a long period of time. Once the disease occurs, it will be difficult to treat." Zhu Xiaoxuan's face turned pale with fear, and he said, "Is this related to these woods?" Su Weifeng nodded again. Zhu Jianbin immediately said anxiously, "This is impossible. This is top grade pear wood. It has absolutely no harm to the human body. Before I bought it, I specially asked someone to study it carefully." Su Weifeng said, "Yes, if it is real pear wood, it really has no harm to the human body, but these woods are not real pear wood. Not pear wood." This time it was the old man who asked the question, and said, "I have also studied a lot about wood. This texture and quality should not be wrong." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, even a carpenter with many years of experience can easily make a mistake, because this kind of wood, whether it is the trunk, branches, and leaves, or even the wood texture, is no different from pear wood. But it is indeed another kind of plant, and in fact it is more precious and rare than pear wood. This kind of wood is called orange pear wood. Orange pear wood. Several people had never heard of this name. Zhu Jianben snorted and said, are you deliberately trying to be mysterious here? Su Weifeng didn't mind, and added, and this kind of wood is completely harmless to ordinary people, so people basically don't deliberately distinguish it. But, this kind of wood is not good for old men. Zhu Jianben snorted again, but old man Zhu Xianfeng and Zhu Xiaoxuan both aroused Su Weifeng's interest at this time, and they were also worried about Zhu Xianfeng's health. Both of them glared at Zhu Jianbin, and Zhu Jianbin quickly swallowed back what he was about to say. When Zhu Xianfeng turned to look at Su Weifeng, he had a smile on his face and said, then why is it harmful to me? The old man is in poor health and has the habit of using sandalwood all year round. The smell of this orange pear wood, mixed with the smell of sandalwood, will form a chronic poison that poisons the lungs. Zhu Xianfeng said in surprise, there is no smell of sandalwood in my room. I haven't lit it in the past 2 days. How can you smell it? Su Weifeng said, the old man likes to play with sandalwood. I think it must be no less than 20 years. The smell of sandalwood has been deposited in your body. Even if you don't touch sandalwood for a few months, you will still have this smell in your body. It is very difficult to get rid of it, so I said that you should throw away this orange pear wood. Zhu Xianfeng touched the beard on his chin and said, this is knowledgeable. There are such wonderful plants in the world. Su Weifeng said, plants are very strange. Like our Chinese medicine, most of the medicines are plants, and they are configured with each other, which is also a myriad of ways. Zhu Xianfeng nodded repeatedly and said, now that you put it that way, I can completely understand. Zhu Xiaoxuan said, besides throwing away this kind of wood, does grandpa's body need any other treatment? Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, during this period, you have helped me several times. I have already repaid the favor of saving your life. Now I owe you the Zhu family. If I don't show my gratitude, I will not feel at ease. Today I will help the old man to recuperate. Haha, no hurry, let's have a meal first. I specially stewed a native chicken when I knew you were coming. It is said that this place is quiet, but with Zhu Xianfeng's status, there are still 2 people here to take care of his safety, and there is also a nanny to take care of his food and daily life. So those pear wood tables and chairs were immediately cleaned up and replaced with a set of normal tables and chairs. Grandpa, I have eaten outside, so I won't eat with you. I know you are fine, so I will leave first. Zhu Jianben was obviously unwilling to eat here, and he found an excuse to leave. Zhu Xiaoxuan said to Su Weifeng apologetically, Jianben offended brother Su just now. I apologize to you on his behalf. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, he is also concerned about the health of the old man. It is normal for him to be a little rude. I won't mind it. Zhu Xianfeng immediately slapped the table and praised, Xiao Su is really magnanimous. If you want to achieve great things, you can never achieve anything without a great magnanimity. Thank you for the compliment, old man. Su Weifeng smiled modestly. The old man said, I'm a person who can judge people very well. From what you see now, you must have extraordinary experiences and your future achievements will definitely be very high. So I still hope that we can make a good relationship first. If the Zhu family encounters any difficulties in the future, please take care of them. When the old man said this, even Zhu Xiaoxuan widened his eyes in horror and couldn't close his mouth. Chapter 272 Assassination. Zhu Xiaoxuan had a high opinion of Su Weifeng, but she never thought that in her grandfather's eyes, Su Weifeng actually had such a high opinion. This was simply that Su Weifeng's future achievements and the heights he reached would be higher than their Zhu family. But even if Su Weifeng had extraordinary abilities, he was just an ordinary person now. The Zhu family had the old man, a great man, and several capable assistants. After years of accumulation, the Zhu family had the current scale. And how could Su Weifeng achieve such a high level? Su Weifeng looked calm at this time, smiled faintly, and said, "The old man really thinks highly of me, but if the ZHU family is really in trouble, I will help, as long as it does not violate the law." ZHU Xiaoxuan's heart was shocked. Su Weifeng actually agreed at this time. He agreed without any excuses. Doesn't this mean that Su Weifeng also has this confidence? Grandpa's request was enough to shock her, and then Su Weifeng's promise shocked her even more. "Xiaoxuan, why don't you pick a good piece of meat for Xiao Su? What are you daydreaming about?" The old man's shouting woke ZHU Xiaoxuan up. ZHU Xiaoxuan quickly picked a piece of thigh meat for Su Weifeng and said with a complicated expression, "Brother Su, I will remember what you said. You must admit it in the future." The old man immediately cast a look of approval at ZHU Xiaoxuan. This granddaughter is definitely the smartest one among the third generation. Although she is a girl, ZHU Xianfeng really values her. Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Of course I admit it." Su Weifeng didn't care about other things, but the ZHU family did a good job in his father's affairs, so Su Weifeng made such a promise. The old man looked at Su Weifeng, then at ZHU Xiaoxuan, and smiled, saying, "Xiao Su, what do you think of our Xiaoxuan?" Su Weifeng and ZHU Xiaoxuan were both smart people, and they immediately guessed the meaning of the old man's words. ZHU Xiaoxuan's face was slightly red at this time, but he looked at Su Weifeng with burning eyes, waiting for his answer. Su Weifeng was really embarrassed and said, "Xiaoxuan is naturally a good girl, but I already have a girlfriend, so I can only let down the old man's kindness." The old man laughed and said, "Don't worry, I'm not the kind of person who randomly matches couples, nor am I the kind of person who wants to exchange my own children for benefits. Even if you can't be husband and wife, you can still be good friends, or even good siblings. Anyway, you should visit each other more, and get closer in the future." Su Weifeng breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Of course there is no problem with this. It's my honor to be friends with Xiaoxuan." ZHU Xiaoxuan's eyes were filled with resentment, and he said, "But I feel deeply shocked." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "This kind of thing is all about fate." Su Weifeng simply treated ZHU Xianfeng today, and then asked ZHU Xiaoxuan to prepare a large wooden barrel and a set of silver needles for acupuncture tomorrow, and also prescribed some medicine. It was almost 9 o'clock when Su Weifeng said goodbye and left. This time, ZHU Xiaoxuan drove Su Weifeng personally, and the car he drove was changed to an ordinary Mercedes-Benz. However, the car had just driven a short distance when Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, "There is something wrong with the car behind. Is there a problem?" ZHU Xiaoxuan looked in the rearview mirror. It was an off-road jeep, but he couldn't see anything. Su Weifeng said, "Slow down, pull to the side of the road, slow down a little bit, and make a gesture to give way to the other party." ZHU Xiaoxuan did as he was told, and soon frowned, saying, "He didn't even overtake my car. This is really a problem." Su Weifeng nodded and said, "It should be correct, but now I don't know whether they just want to follow you, or want to threaten our car." ZHU Xiaoxuan's face sank, and her pretty face was frosty. She said, "This is really bold. They actually set their sights on our ZHU family." While talking, ZHU Xiaoxuan picked up his mobile phone and wanted to find someone to find out what was going on here. But just as she picked up the phone, Su Weifeng suddenly shouted, "Speed up." ZHU Xiaoxuan instinctively stepped on the accelerator, but the rear of the car was still hit, and the car swerved to the side. A big hand reached out and grabbed the steering wheel so that it didn't fall into the ditch next to it. Looking at the deep ditch next to it, ZHU Xiaoxuan couldn't help but feel a little scared. If she hadn't suddenly accelerated just now, the consequences of her car being hit would be disastrous. Bang! The car was hit again, and ZHU Xiaoxuan's body shook, and she couldn't help but scream. Even though she was usually calm and generous, at this time, she was just an ordinary woman. Apart from screaming, she really couldn't do anything. Before her eyes, a body actually sat on her, and Su Weifeng's voice came to her ears, "I'll control the car, you take your feet away." ZHU Xiaoxuan hurriedly retracted her feet in panic, but in this narrow space, she couldn't do it at all, especially Su Weifeng's back pressed on her chest, making her a little breathless. "Move the seat back." Su Weifeng reminded again. ZHU Xiaoxuan quickly agreed, and her hand groped for the electric adjustment button on the left. After pressing it, the driver's seat moved back directly, and her pressure was finally relieved a lot. Bang! The car was hit hard from behind again. Due to inertia, Su Weifeng's body suddenly hit ZHU Xiaoxuan's chest hard. ZHU Xiaoxuan groaned in pain, feeling that his bones were about to break. But at this moment, Su Weifeng finally adjusted his posture and the car was completely controlled by him. Although the car shook a few times, the speed increased suddenly, avoiding being hit by the car behind again. But at this moment, a medium-sized truck rushed over. The truck actually rushed directly to the opposite lane and hit Su Weifeng's car. ZHU Xiaoxuan was immediately scared and screamed loudly. The visual impact of being hit by the car behind just now was not that great, and the sense of danger of hitting the back was not as great as the impact from the front. It wasn't just the car in front that collided. The jeep behind didn't even slow down, and continued to hit the car. There were pursuers behind, and blockades in front. Besides, this road was barely big enough for two cars. Under such circumstances, it seemed that Su Weifeng's car had no way to avoid it. ZHU Xiaoxuan hugged Su Weifeng's waist tightly with both hands. Apart from doing this, there was nothing else she could do. Chapter 273 You can't do it. 200 meters. 100 meters. 50 meters. 30 meters. ZHU Xiaoxuan watched the truck on the opposite side getting closer and closer to his car. Not only did the speed of the truck not slow down at all, but his own speed did not slow down either. It seemed as if Su Weifeng was going to collide with the truck on the opposite side. Their Mercedes-Benz was also an S-Class car, and its normal safety performance was quite good, but that also depended on the circumstances. Compared with ordinary cars, at normal speeds, it might still have some advantages. But facing a truck, at a speed of more than 80, if it really hits, the result can only be, the car is destroyed, and the person dies. The car on the opposite side was turning on the high beam, and the closer it got, the more ZHU Xiaoxuan could see the lights of the two eyes, and he could no longer see anything else, let alone judge the distance. But at this moment, Su Weifeng suddenly turned the lights of the car to high beam, and the strong light also shone on the driver's seat of the truck on the opposite side. He turned the steering wheel violently, and the brakes and handbrakes under his feet cooperated. The Mercedes-Benz car actually did an extreme drift at this time. The car turned more than 100 degrees, and turned its front end around, before colliding with the truck, rushing to the side and rear. However, the road here was too narrow after all, and the car could not turn back to the road perfectly, and it still rushed into the ditch beside it. But the ditch was not deep. The car bumped violently for a few times and hit a small tree, and then stopped. ZHU Xiaoxuan screamed all the way, and finally stopped at this time. Then she immediately asked nervously, Su Weifeng, how are you? She was wearing a seatbelt, so in this case, she was fine, but Su Weifeng was not wearing a seatbelt. With such violent bumps, it would be easy to get a strong impact injury. Su Weifeng pushed the airbag that popped out from the front, and opened the door directly, saying, it's okay, let's get out of the car quickly, the danger is not over yet. ZHU Xiaoxuan had just unbuckled her seatbelt, when she was pulled out by Su Weifeng. Then she felt a strong force coming from Su Weifeng's hand, and her body seemed to fly off the ground, completely out of her control, and ran to the side in front at a high speed. She glanced at the road, and found that the truck and the jeep had collided with each other, and the jeep was overturned into the ditch. However, there was actually a van following behind the truck. At this time, several people jumped out of the van, and rushed towards their Mercedes-Benz. The development of the ZHU family over the years, has naturally recruited some masters, promised a lot of money, and added some courtesy from the ZHU family. At present, there are several very powerful masters in the family, which are not comparable to ordinary bodyguards. ZHU Xiaoxuan has seen them practicing and fighting several times, so she knows very well how powerful these people are. There are also some retired special forces soldiers in the family, but these special forces soldiers are basically defeated in a few moves in front of these masters. And now, two of the people rushing over seem to be that kind of masters. Oh no, there are special masters among them, what can I do? ZHU Xiaoxuan was shocked. Although he knew some information about Su Weifeng, he didn't know much about Su Weifeng's combat power. So she instinctively thought that Su Weifeng couldn't beat that kind of special master. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, "It's okay, I'm here." ZHU Xiaoxuan shook his head and said, "You are not their opponent either. They are too strong. It's a pity that I didn't bring such a master with me today." "Really? That's not necessarily true," Su Weifeng said lightly. He would not underestimate his opponent, but judging from the reaction speed of those people chasing him, 2 of them were indeed strong. This kind of strength is stronger than the so-called masters. Such strength is indeed rare. But in Su Weifeng's eyes, their strength was just like that. Even compared to his current strength, which was not even half as strong, there was still some gap. There was an irrigation ditch on both sides of the road. There were some small trees on the side of the ditch close to the road, and weeds on the other side. Outside the ditch, it was all rice fields. The rice seedlings were not tall, and there was no place for 2 people to hide. The small trees were also very low, and there was no place to hide people. Those people rushed to the side of the car, and did not see anyone in the car. They immediately found the figures of Su Weifeng and ZHU Xiaoxuan. "What should we do? What should we do?" ZHU Xiaoxuan was a little panicked, but immediately analyzed the current situation quickly and said, "The best possibility now is that Grandpa's bodyguards can come, but it will take at least 10 minutes. We can't hold on for 10 minutes at all." Su Weifeng stopped at this time, smiled slightly, and said, "Don't bother so much, I'll deal with them." These people are not ordinary people." ZHU Xiaoxuan looked at Su Weifeng suspiciously. Su Weifeng left the car quickly just now, because he was worried that the other party had a gun. In this dark night, if the other party used a gun, it would be really difficult for him to defend. But when the other party chased him, they did not shoot. They had roughly judged that they did not have guns, so why should he be afraid? 2 people rushed over first, but did not attack directly. Instead, they blocked the way of Su Weifeng and ZHU Xiaoxuan one after another. The other 2 also rushed over quickly, 4 people in 4 directions. "Who are you?" ZHU Xiaoxuan asked in a deep voice. "Attack." Waiting for ZHU Xiaoxuan, it was a hoarse voice. This voice was obviously deliberately concealing its own voice. 2 of the 4 people attacked Su Weifeng, and the other 2 actually rushed directly to ZHU Xiaoxuan. Their goal was obvious, that is, to kill ZHU Xiaoxuan. As for Su Weifeng, he was just regarded as a bodyguard. There were 2 most powerful people to stop Su Weifeng, and the other 2 were enough to easily get rid of ZHU Xiaoxuan. But what surprised the 2 masters was that Su Weifeng actually flashed out of their attack range in an instant. "Be careful." The 2 masters immediately shouted a warning. When the other 2 rushed towards ZHU Xiaoxuan, they were absolutely confident, and did not consider that they would be attacked. So when Su Weifeng rushed over, they were not prepared at all. When they felt the danger, Su Weifeng's fist had already hit their backs heavily. With 2 bangs, the 2 men flew out directly, spitting blood in the air. With 1 punch, they were already seriously injured. Chapter 274 Mercenaries? Just as Su Weifeng knocked the 2 men away, a sense of crisis came from behind. Su Weifeng immediately pounced, and fell to the ground with ZHU Xiaoxuan. A sharp arrow flew past his scalp. If he hadn't reacted quickly enough, this arrow would have pierced ZHU Xiaoxuan through. No wonder the opponent didn't use a gun. It turned out that he had the same sharp weapon. Judging from the speed of the arrow just now, the opponent's crossbow must be very powerful. In this dark environment, the power of the crossbow is not inferior to that of the gun, so Su Weifeng immediately took ZHU Xiaoxuan to roll several times. Puff. Sure enough, 2 arrows shot to the place where they were just now. Puff. Several arrows were shot at Su Weifeng again. Fortunately, Su Weifeng's reaction was very alert. The darkness not only blocked his sight, but also made the opponent lose his accuracy. Finally, he escaped without any danger. Retreat. After a low shout, the 2 masters immediately turned around and left, and took away the 2 people who were injured by Su Weifeng just now. Su Weifeng did not chase after them, but held ZHU Xiaoxuan, and lay on the ground. It was definitely very dangerous to chase these enemies in the dark with ZHU Xiaoxuan, and he was also very afraid that the other party was setting a trap, waiting for the two to get up and then shoot arrows. The truck on top was high, so it didn't hit anything, and it could drive away directly. The Jeep had originally crashed into the ditch, but its powerful off-road ability came in handy at this time, and it actually drove out. In less than a minute, several cars had disappeared. Just left like that. ZHU Xiaoxuan looked around vigilantly. They should have left. Su Weifeng nodded. From the collision with our car just now, and the subsequent direct killing, they have made sufficient preparations. Under normal circumstances, it should be foolproof. ZHU Xiaoxuan couldn't help shivering as he said this. If it wasn't for Su Weifeng, she would have crashed the car and killed everyone. But, they had a chance to chase us. Why did they retreat? Maybe they were afraid that your ZHU family would come? Su Weifeng said casually, but in his estimation, it was his appearance that completely disrupted their plan, and when he took action, they felt that Su Weifeng was very powerful, so they were no longer sure to kill ZHU Xiaoxuan. These people reacted very quickly and made decisions immediately without any hesitation. This kind of behavior is very much like the style of mercenaries. Squeak. The cry of a small insect broke the silence, and then more insects followed suit. It's okay, there shouldn't be an ambush. Su Weifeng said softly. How did you know? ZHU Xiaoxuan asked in a low voice. Su Weifeng said, there is a kind of insect whose senses are very sharp. If someone is around, they will not make a sound. Just like the two of us here, even if we don't make a sound, there are no such insects chirping within a few meters. Except for us, there are such little insects chirping, so there should be no other people around. ZHU Xiaoxuan widened his eyes, listened carefully, and said, I don't know how many kinds of insects are chirping here. How do you distinguish them? Su Weifeng chuckled and said, if you have time later, you can bring each kind of insect to your side and listen to it for a few days, and then do this for a year or two. When you stand here and listen, you will know how many insects are chirping. ZHU Xiaoxuan grinned and said, forget it, don't you know that girls are most afraid of little insects? Let's go up. Su Weifeng jumped up first, and then picked up ZHU Xiaoxuan. A car rushed over at this time, and ZHU Xiaoxuan's cell phone rang. It turned out that someone from the ZHU family rushed over. After a while, Su Weifeng and ZHU Xiaoxuan returned to the place where the old man lived. At this time, Su Weifeng and ZHU Xiaoxuan were both in a state of disgrace, covered with dirt and grass. The old man slammed the table and said angrily with a gloomy face, you are so bold that you even dare to kill my granddaughter, ZHU Xianfeng. Investigate for me. You must find the person for me, especially the mastermind behind the scenes. You must find him out for me. I want to see who is so bold and who is against our ZHU family. This is definitely a big deal. At the old man's order, countless people from the ZHU family began to investigate the matter. The old man lost his temper for a while, arranged the things, and then said to Su Weifeng gratefully, Xiao Su, this time it's all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be able to see my precious granddaughter. ZHU Xiaoxuan was also very scared at this time, and said, yes, if it weren't for Brother Su's quick reaction, I don't know how many times I would have died. Su Weifeng frowned slightly and said, these people are really not simple. They cooperate very well. I think they should be from a mercenary group. Mercenaries? The old man frowned and said, they must be hired. A mercenary group, although dangerous, is not enough to scare us. But a person who has been trying to do something cruel to us in secret is the most terrifying. Su Weifeng nodded and said, it seems that the old man has his own calculations, so I'll go back. The old man didn't stay for long, and said, see you tomorrow. ZHU Xiaoxuan said worriedly, Grandpa, why don't you not live here? There were so many people just now, and your bodyguards here are not enough to protect your safety. The old man's expression eased, and he said softly, don't worry. If they fail in the first attack, they can't do it again. We have already sent more people here. It's okay. You can go back too. Xiao Su, please send Xiaoxuan back. ZHU Xiaoxuan hesitated for a moment and said, okay, I'll go back then. This time, they got into the Bentley again. There was a driver and a bodyguard. Su Weifeng and ZHU Xiaoxuan sat in the back seat. Seeing ZHU Xiaoxuan's nervous expression after getting in the car, Su Weifeng smiled and said, "At this time, if they dare to do it again, they will definitely be exposed. They will never do such a stupid thing." ZHU Xiaoxuan nodded and said, "I think it should be like this, but I'm still a little scared. Ouch." ZHU Xiaoxuan patted his chest lightly, then sighed softly, and a painful look appeared on his face. Chapter 275. Bloody. What's wrong? Su Weifeng asked worriedly. Did you get hurt just now? ZHU Xiaoxuan nodded, still holding his hand on his chest, and said, I think so. Su Weifeng said with concern, let me check for you, and see where you are hurt. Oh. ZHU Xiaoxuan blushed, but bit her lip and said, okay, thank you for your help. Check it out as soon as possible, and deal with any problems as soon as possible. Su Weifeng nodded and said, where does it hurt? Here. ZHU Xiaoxuan raised his arm and pointed to his chest on both sides. Ah. Su Weifeng was a little embarrassed for a moment and said, do you feel pain in your chest or here? ZHU Xiaoxuan said, I don't know, anyway, it hurts here. Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, there are ribs here. If you have a fracture or crack, it will be troublesome. I'm sorry for being rude to you. It's okay, I'll just treat you as a doctor. ZHU Xiaoxuan actually smiled at this time. Su Weifeng took a breath, then stretched out his hand, and then exerted force on his hand, saying, is the pain getting worse? ZHU Xiaoxuan's face was also red, and he shook his head and said, no. Su Weifeng breathed a sigh of relief and said, then the bone here should be fine. What about this side? Is the pain getting worse? ZHU Xiaoxuan said awkwardly, no. Then it's no big deal. ZHU Xiaoxuan said angrily, it's all your fault for hitting me. I hit you? Su Weifeng was a little puzzled. ZHU Xiaoxuan hit Su Weifeng with a little resentment and said, you hit me several times when you were driving. Su Weifeng was embarrassed all of a sudden and said, at that time, I couldn't control my body. I only thought about how to control the car in my mind. I'm really sorry. ZHU Xiaoxuan's face turned into a sweet smile again, saying, compared to life, this little thing is naturally insignificant. I don't mind. Su Weifeng grinned. This topic was not easy to continue, so he simply stopped talking. ZHU Xiaoxuan did not say much, but he rubbed his chest from time to time, which made the atmosphere in the car seem quite charming. There was nothing wrong along the way, and Su Weifeng got off the car at the intersection a few dozen meters away from the training center. Coming back so late, the security guard at the door saw him being sent back in a luxury car, which was still easy to make people imagine. Walking along the sidewalk to the main gate, two people got out of a car on the side of the road and walked towards Su Weifeng. Both of them had their hands behind their backs, and when they walked towards Su Weifeng, they deliberately talked while not looking at Su Weifeng at all. It's just that the two of them acted so badly that Su Weifeng could tell at a glance that their target was him. The walking posture of these two people, as well as the poor cover-up, all showed that these two people were not good players, but two very ordinary people. Su Weifeng pretended not to notice them, and walked towards them slowly. When the two sides were still 2 meters apart, the two guys suddenly raised their hands, which were originally behind their backs, and each of them held a plastic bag. They raised the bag, and tried to throw it at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng flicked his finger, and 2 small branches flew out, hitting the bags in the hands of the two men. No matter what was in the bag, it must not be a good thing if it wanted to splash on Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng would naturally not let them splash it, and he would let them have a taste of it. Splash. The bags in the hands of the two men were punctured before they were thrown out, and the liquid inside suddenly poured out, immediately soaking the two men's faces. When they were thrown out, Su Weifeng had already dodged and smelled a pungent smell of blood. With the help of the street lamp, Su Weifeng looked at the glaring blood on the two men, and couldn't help wondering what was going on. These two guys actually wanted to splash blood on him. What did this mean? 3 people rushed over to the car, parked on the roadside. One was a man in his 40s in a long robe, one was the woman Cheyenne Fair, and the other was a man in his 30s. The man in the long robe flicked his sleeves and shouted, which Ivaldo dares to act wildly here. Show your true form. Su Weifeng was standing under a tree on the roadside at this time. The tree top blocked the street light, so his figure was quite blurry, and it was also impossible to see if he was stained with blood. The man and Qiao Fei were standing behind the man in the long robe. Qiao Fei looked at Su Weifeng nervously and said, "Master, will this work?" The man in the long robe said confidently, "It will definitely work. Black dog blood is specially used to exorcise evil spirits. Even if this guy has evil magic, it has been broken now. Boy, I'm here. Why don't you surrender?" Su Weifeng finally understood what the blood that was spilling out was. It was actually black dog blood. Qiao Fei actually thought that he had some evil magic and found an old Taoist from somewhere and then wanted to use black dog blood to break his evil magic. "Qiao Fei, you are really capable." Su Weifeng said this just because he felt funny and deliberately teased Qiao Fei. But Qiao Fei had the support of this Taoist priest and actually thought that Su Weifeng was afraid. At this time, she immediately straightened her chest and gritted her teeth and said, "Boy, you are so arrogant, but you made me embarrassed in front of others. Now your evil magic has been broken. Let me see how I will deal with you." The man in his 30s was named Zheng Dongyan. He was the one who found this Taoist priest for Qiao Fei. He put his arm around Qiao Fei's shoulders and said, "Fear, this kind of person must be dealt with properly, otherwise he really thinks that he can do whatever he wants with some evil magic. He actually dared to mess with you. You two, beat him up first and let Fei vent his anger." The two guys who threw dog blood really didn't know whether they splashed Su Weifeng or not. They were still very afraid of evil magic. However, after hearing the Taoist priest say that he had broken Su Weifeng's magic, and with the boss's urging, they boldly approached Su Weifeng. At this time, Su Weifeng suddenly grinned and said, "Do you really think you have broken my magic?" The two young men paused. The Taoist priest snorted and said, "You have been splashed with black dog blood, and the magic must have been broken. You are just a coward, trying to scare people. Your trick works in front of others, but it has no effect in front of me. You really underestimated me. You think you can break my skills with a little black dog blood. Naive." Su Weifeng suddenly walked out of the shadows with a wild smile on his face. Since they thought he knew magic, he would use this method to scare them. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.